right, welcome everybody to this June 9th meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures. Oh, sorry, I thought someone said something. To authorize the procedures authorized by Foyer, the ARB needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for some patience on this. First, because each of these ARB members are participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and that an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each ARB member participating in this meeting to state your name and your location from which you're participating. After doing so, I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear your colleagues. Following this roll call, we'll vote to establish that we can all hear each other. So we start first and foremost with Ms. Michelle Albury.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I am here, Michelle Aubry, in my residence in Alexandria, Virginia. And so far, I can hear everyone fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. John Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Burns. I'm in my living room in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. I can hear everyone just fine.
All right. Ms. Camplin, I do not see her on the panelist list at this time. And I did not see her trapped in the attendees section. So at this moment, she is going to be marked absent. I am Christopher Daniel, Chairman of the Architectural Review Board, and I am calling in from my home in Reston, Virginia. Ms. Huang.
Yes, this is Samantha Huang. I am joining the meeting from Reston, my home, and I can hear Chairman speak just fine.
Thank you very much, Ms. Huang. Ms. Murray. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped Mr. Kalinsky.
Okay, well, thank you, Steve Kalinsky. I am in my office in Alexandria, Virginia, and I can hear everybody fine, except for Miss Murray.
And now Miss Murray.
This is Elise Murray, who has no voice. I'm calling from my mother-in-law's residence in Weems, Virginia.
Thank you, Miss Murray. Ms. Notkins is not present, and I believe is going to be treated as absent. Ms. Orr.
Hi, I hear everyone well. I am in my home in Alexandria, Virginia.
Thank you, ma'am. Do not see Mr. Plumpy at this time on my screen, so we'll note him as absent for the moment being. Mr. Zellman.
Good evening. I can hear everybody just fine, and I'm in my office in Fairfax City, Virginia.
All right, thank you, sir. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to our Vice Chairman, Mr. Zellman, and so that I might be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each ARB's member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Orr. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
All right. Onward and upward. As determined by the roll call, 8 members of this ARB are present and therefore satisfy an ARB quorum minimum. The ARB's bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
All right. Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. I therefore move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And as such, for as usual procedures, which require physical assembly of the ARB in the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through WebEx, a county virtual meeting platform available for access through the ARB county website or through phone at 1-844-621-3956 with the access code 2338-242-7694. It is so moved.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Orr.
Jason, can you repeat that? You cut out.
Oh, we can't hear you,
I'm
Jason.
sorry if I cut out. I said it was seconded by Soar and all those.
One more time, please, Jason. You're in and out.
I might have to switch to my phone, but seconded by Ms. Orr. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
All right, next is required that all matters addressed in today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Last, the ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment during consent agenda items and after each action item, as is ARB standard practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Orr. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And
All right.
gavel back to the chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zellman. Now that we've gotten those special motions out of the way and we've established the need for how much time members of the public will have, I'll just highlight that, as mentioned in that motion, members of the public have a chance to comment on consent items and action items. If you do wish to comment, it will be after the presentation from an applicant. So please signify that via the chat or by raising your hand via the hand feature in WebEx, or I believe by hitting a #6. I believe Denise will clarify that in a minute in the WebEx app if you're on your phone. And then Denise or Grace will identify you as having a public comment. Next is any virtual meeting information. Denise, do you have any other information? And I'm sorry, it was *3 that was the correction there on the code you would have to hit.
Right, yeah, and I'll repeat that in a moment. This meeting is being recorded and the recording will be posted online within 10 days. Attendees may email me during the meeting using the Q&A box or chat function in the WebEx platform for inquiries. Staff will monitor and respond accordingly. If you're calling in and wish to make a public comment, please indicate so by raising your hand, pressing *3 at the appropriate time. Attendees experiencing technical issues, please call WebEx technical assistance at 1-866-799-3293. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, and we can get to the actual kickoff of our meeting with the reading of the statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts, and Mr. John Burns has offered to do that. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, architectural, cultural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to ensure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you so much, John. And again, I'll remind everybody, if you're not talking, please keep yourself on mute so we don't get any reverb. Next on our lineup is the approval of the agenda. We have a pretty full agenda in front of us. I would look for a motion to approve it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda.
All right. And it looked like it was seconded by Mr. Plumpy. Mr. Plumpy, was that a second by your hand there? Can you confirm we can hear you?
Yes, I can hear you. And yes, I would like to second that motion. Thank you so much,
All right.
Chris.
No problem. Let the record show Mr. Plumpy has joined us. We've got him on there. He can be heard. All right. I have a motion to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Then the agenda passes. Next, we move into the introduction of guests. Denise, are there any guests?
There are no guests tonight.
All right. Thank you, Denise. There are no consent calendar action items, which will take us into the items for action. I will remind applicants that we would like you to limit presentation time to 8 minutes for a first submission and 3 minutes for a resubmission. And I emphasize that for the sake of time in this and for if you've been to us for a workshop session and we've seen your project before, or you've been here before and you've revised your project, please provide us the salient information on any changes that have been made since we've seen it last. If you have a presentation, Denise will be able to pull it up, or we will give you control to present it. But we'll give you a friendly heads up when you're getting close to that 8 or 3 minutes to let you know. Following that, I will do public comment, and then members will ask questions if they have any, and then a motion will be taken up as proposed. Beyond that, I think that's all the information I have. So we'll move on to our first item on the list, which number 1 is ARB 22 LFK 03 10102 Chainbridge Road, a new single-family dwelling located at 1012 Chainbridge Road in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing the construction of a new single-family dwelling. Mr. Jabori with KJ and Associates is here. Seen you quite a lot, Mr. Jabori. It was so good to see you again. Hopefully you're there.
Indeed, I am, Mr.
There you go. Okay, got worried there for a second. All right, I see you up there.
I was trying to reestablish my video background. Unfortunately, you guys are gonna have to look at the wall behind me. Good evening, everyone. Let me share my screen with you. Can you see the rendering, 3D rendering?
This moment is just now loading up. There you go. Yes.
Okay. We met last month, as you recall, in regards with the new construction or the architectural drawings. Various board members had comments. One was in regards with the 3D rendering and the gables on the front view of the house looking differently than the two-dimensional view and other architectural drawings and so forth. We revised the camera angle. I am hopeful that this view is acceptable, and it shows we've changed nothing. I believe it was only the camera angle that was causing distortion of some sorts. I am hoping that this is acceptable and we can move on to the other concerns.
All right. Well, I think we'll get you all your questions, Mr. Jabori, as you go for each of the items. So just thanks for that. And now move on to, if you want, to the next one. I think the next one was the question about the plans, making sure they match this, correct?
These are the 2D view of the frontal of the house. We've added the porch lighting to the front view, the right side view where the garages are, the rear view looking onto the patio and the backyard, and there are no lightings on the left view of the property. Next is Mr. Burns expressed concerns regarding site lighting. Besides the lighting on the facade of the structure itself, we had this landscape lighting plan prepared that you have a copy of. The Kitchener landscape lighting is being used. We have uplight direct, uplight indirect, step light, and path light indirect. The uplight direct, these are all at the base of the trees. They're maximum 50 watts. The uplight indirect bulbs are 36 watts, and step lights are 11.6 watts, and the path right indirect or anywhere between 16 to 25 watts. They're spread throughout the drawing. On this view, it is, unless you would like me to zoom into it, but we did forward you a copy of this plan. Hopefully everybody has had an opportunity to look at. If I may, I would like to move into the informational sheets regarding existing tree inventory and what trees have little chance of survival that have been marked with X. The dotted X are the ones that are either shared with the adjoining property owner or are clearly on their property, and we will not be removing those unless they agree upon removal. Mr. Plumpy was very concerned about this, so we prepared this and forwarded to the board. And then the last item is the proposed landscaping in regards with providing screening along the adjoining property towards the historic district overlay, but we are going to screen also on the opposite side as shown.
All right. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Jabori. Yes, we did get all the documents that you sent in. I'll remind, before we get to we'll do public comment in just a moment, but I'll just remind board members that some of the stuff that you provided us was things that were contingent upon prior approvals for the other two documents that you said you would submit to us as informational materials, and that this item in particular is focused on the architecture for the new construction. So keep that in mind when we do get to that, members. Denise, and obviously it would open up for public comment. Have anyone indicated they have a comment?
Not that I can see.
All right, and I have been checking the attendees as well, and I don't see any hands raised. So at this time, I'm going to assume there is no public comments. What I'm going to do is ask if there are any ARB members that have a comment or a question. If you can either raise your hand visually or using WebEx. I am looking at all of you who have your cameras on, so hopefully I can see you all, or use the raise your hand feature to let me know if you have a comment. Miss Orr, sorry.
Maybe I'm missing something, but I think they have dropped the architectural. I mean, those are all 3D, whatevers, but it's not really the kind of thing you would submit for permit. The elevations are not. Have I missed something in the drawings?
For example, is it?
Okay, there they are. Okay, I'm sorry. I missed them. Okay, never mind. Thank you.
Would you like me to go through every view? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Kay, if you're still talking, you went muted. No, I guess, okay. I think she's saying she's got no further questions there on that front. Any other members with a comment and or question? Mr. Burns, I see you raised your hand visually.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The landscape plan that you showed tonight, I believe was labeled conceptual landscape lighting plan. The one that we have in a drawing set is labeled proposed landscape lighting plan. They're different drawings. So in the interest of making sure of what we are approving, what are we actually approving here tonight? We've got a drawing that you presented tonight. It's not the one that's in our package.
Mr. Burns, they are absolutely identical.
Well, their labels are different, and they're small enough on my screen that I can't tell how
Mr.
different they
Burns,
may be.
that is totally my fault. Let me, do you see this view right now?
That is the one that was in our set, but that was not the one that you presented tonight.
I assure you, Mr. Burns, that they are totally identical. The titles, two different ones were sent to me. I requested that the label be changed to proposed because we don't intend to change anything. And I just loaded up in the presentation the wrong file. They are 100% absolutely identical.
Okay. Denise, does that present any issues from the county perspective?
I also believe that the landscape plan is not being reviewed tonight. This is part
Okay.
of Mr. Jabori's courtesy information that he's providing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Good. Good. That was one question. Then I noticed also in the presentation tonight, we've got two renderings. One is called front elevation, which shows 3 windows, individual windows and groupings. And then we have a second one that's labeled front elevation with continuous windows, which I think is the one you're proposing. And I just wanted to make sure that we are clear that of which one we are actually being asked to approve tonight.
The 4 newest renderings 2D, which show the exterior lighting on the house facade, are what you are approving, and those are the ones that I forwarded to everybody earlier this week or last week.
Okay, so we should any approval tonight would exclude the one that's simply labeled front elevation that has 3 windows as opposed to windows in a continuous row. Is that correct?
Allow me to.
Right, that's the one that I believe you're asking us to approve. Is that correct?
Correct, and that is the front view.
I believe, Mr. Jabori, we have the old elevations as well that were submitted during this last action item that show as Mr. Burns is saying, the 3 separate windows. And after conversations with the various architects on the board, it was agreed that the continuous window was the preferred idea. So in the files that we have from staff, we also have the prior renderings. So I think that's a good clarification for Mr. Burns that we are approving the ones with the continuous windows.
Absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman.
Is that correct, Ms. John? Am I understanding?
That's what I was trying to get to, is that I just wanted to make sure that we're absolutely clear as to what it was we were approving.
As I mentioned respectfully, Mr. Burns, if we also pay attention to the lighting on the house itself, those are the renderings that you're approving.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my 2 questions, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Do not see any other members raising their hands. I do not see any other hands. Oh,
Steve Kalinsky.
oh, Steve, sorry, I don't see you on my arrangement of cameras, but yes, go right ahead, Mr. Kalinsky.
I was raising both hands, jumping up and down at the same time. I just want to say, clarify things. The 2-dimensional construction documents that were submitted are not the same as the continuous window front elevation as shown. It's a much more modern take. So, yeah, here we go. A03, yes. So if you were to compare, I mean, and just as a really quick, obvious thing, on the right side elevation, the garage has very, very, say, modern style doors with offset or asymmetrical light panels and a transom window above. Whereas the front elevation also has the casement windows with over top of awnings or hoppers and a fixed window in the middle, as well as a taller window in the 2nd floor above the front door, and the garage window is also much larger. So this doesn't really correspond with what was shown. And You know, I think Mr. Jabouri is offering up that rendered elevation is what it's going to look like, but these construction documents don't match that. Is there a way for us to ensure that what was shown in the rendered elevation ultimately is what gets through the permitting in the county? Is that something that the county can control?
May I interject here, please, Denise? Is Mr. Tafty present in this?
I
At this,
don't see,
yeah,
I'm
I don't
sorry,
see
excuse
him.
me, sorry.
This being the architectural drawings, I was assured that I have the most updated and what was sent to the staff last month is exactly what is shown on the 3D rendering. I can give you my word like I did with the landscape plan and the tree preservation and analysis that I will make sure if the board would like to see what is shown with 3D rendering, that the drawings that go to the county for review and building approval will be that. However, the board will put their stamp on this. So I am hopeful that at least we can make an insertion of those changes to this set on this in a note form. We can address it. I respectfully and diligently and adamantly asking if there is a way we can have this approved, and we will make sure everything is done the way the board would like to see it.
Well, Steve, unless you have another comment, what I would suggest is that obviously the ARB could approve this with a condition that the drawing submitted for building permit must reflect the window and door arrangement and design as shown in the elevations provided to us.
I would certainly be fine with that. I just know human nature is somebody's going to forget or somebody's going to drop it in and there'll be a miscommunication and next thing you know, something different is being built. Just trying to avoid that, you know, inevitable mix up. I know because I go through it on a daily basis with my clients. So I'm fine. I'm fine if we can condition it upon that so that we can move ahead. I'd be fine with that.
Well, that would be upon a member if they wanted to put forward a motion for approval if there are no other members with comments or questions. And I may or may not be seeing you raise your hands because I didn't see Mr. Kalinsky's hand go up. I saw it, but he thankfully drew his attention to that. So, Kay, I see it with your hand up.
I think we are going down a difficult road here because then it's upon Denise to look at those drawings and compare. And I don't know if that's fair to her. Are we going to be doing this on everybody's project? Because if we are, then what a burden for her. I don't know. I'm not comfortable saying yes to something that he knew what we wanted, and this is not, the working drawings do not reflect what we'd asked. So that's just my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I would tend to agree with Kay on that. That at this point, I think I would classify this as an incomplete application because it doesn't consistently show what we are being asked to approve.
Well, Mr. Jabouri, the board can take this up as an action item and we can obviously vote to approve, defer, or deny it. I haven't had my comments yet, but I would agree with my fellow board members that the elevations for the windows aren't and the doors are not showing what's shown in the renderings. That's the, they're showing the general format, but not the actual what is being shown there. As Mr. Kalinsky so definitely described, they look like casement windows and have a very interesting style in comparison to what is shown into the elevation. And I don't know if that's because who drew up the plans just decided to drop something in, or who did the rendering decided to drop something in. One way or another, one of those is not reflecting what would get built. And as I agree with my other members, as folks have pointed out, if these are the ones that go to construction, they're not going to be looking at the rendering. They're going to be looking at the construction plan, and that's the windows we're going to see. And those aren't the windows that we're being supportive of in the renderings.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Okay. Obviously, this is an issue going forward, but I'd be happy to craft a motion to, if Denise was willing to review it and mark it for review, that the renderings as presented would be the ultimate elevations, and that the construction documents would be revised to reflect that. I understand, but after multiple times here, I don't want to hold the applicant up.
Understood. And I am at the discretion of the board members. A motion is made one way or another, I will go with it. Mr. Javori's indicated what he is able to do, and I understand the concerns by the various other board members of almost ad hoc approval with this situation. So it's, I can't make motions. So I'm in the situation of what comes before me, I will manage.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add a further comment, I've got the rendering up on one screen, and I'm looking at Mr. Javori's drawing here on the right, and I noticed on the first floor windows flanking the front door that in the rendering they're not full length, but in the architectural drawing they're as tall as the door. So those have not just been changed in configuration; they have been enlarged. And that appears to be the case for the window in the small gable to the right, which was a single. It is now suddenly, again, a floor-to-ceiling window, and it's a kind of vaguely Chicago window, with the solid fixed or a picture window kind of a thing, and it's quite distinctly different. I think we have to be very careful about what it is we agree to here.
Understood. I agree. I would entertain a motion one way or another from a board member, though.
And can I also add then the canopy over the front door has gotten flattened because that window above it has gotten so tall. So it is not as interesting as the one in the rendering either. That just, anyway, that's.
Let me attempt to craft a motion for this. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 22-LFK-03-1102 Chambridge Road, new single-family dwelling located at 1102 Chambridge Road, McLean, tax map 0223010057 in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District for the proposed construction of a new single-family dwelling as submitted and presented at the June 9, 2022 ARB meeting, subject to the following conditions: that the construction documents are submitted accurately reflect the 3D front elevation view and the 4 new renderings that were provided at tonight's meeting. And upon review of the materials, the proposal is then found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101- historic overlay districts.
Mr. Chairman, I will second that. And can I ask a question? Has anybody looked at the side elevations, the renderings compared to the architecturals? We've looked at the front and the rear elevations, and they're quite distinctly different. Is it the same instance with the two side elevations? I must admit I haven't been able to call them up quickly enough to look at them and compare them.
John, correct. All four elevations diverge from the renderings. All
Okay,
four
so
of the construction documents. So the expectation is that all four would match what has been presented in the renderings.
That was my understanding of Mr. Kalinsky's motion, was he mentioned both the elevation and the renderings that were provided as the baseline. Correct, Mr. Kalinsky?
Correct.
Okay.
And I have a second from Mr. Burns with his question addressed. We have a motion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Aye. Any abstentions? Abstentions from Mr. Plumpy. Kay, was it?
I also abstain because I'm not really understanding exactly what it is I would be approving.
Abstention from Ms. Olbury. And Kay, I was not sure what your vote was. Nay from. All right. So I have 2 abstentions, 2 nays, and 1, 2, 3, 4 in support. Ms. Swan, I did not count your vote. What was your vote?
I vote aye.
Aye. So 5, 4, 2 opposed, 2 abstentions. The motion carries. All right, Mr. Jabori, please work with Denise. Obviously, when this goes through the building permit process, it will have to have the approval on it for it to actually go forward, and that will require our staff checking that against these renderings.
Mr. Chairman, I assure you it will be corrected as requested.
Thank you very much
for the approval. Thank everyone on the board. Appreciate it very much. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
And thank you again for bringing the information to us that was requested at the last meeting. I don't think that was mentioned, but it was greatly appreciated, the tree save information as well as the landscaping information.
Just adding one thing, Mr. Chairman, don't be surprised if you see me again not in too distant future on the next door property, but it's not purchased yet. Thank you very much.
All right, I'll just let you know, obviously, feel free to coordinate with Denise, but sometimes as well, individual ARB members are always happy to provide some early liaisoning on other submissions. So if you want some potential insight, there's a possibility that maybe one of our members would be happy to provide some not formal guidance, but potentially some preliminary input to help with that future application.
Point taken. Thank you very, very much.
No problem. Have a wonderful day.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
All right. That takes us on to our next item, ARB 22 LFK 04, the Schrader Residence landscaping modifications located at 1000 Doug Hill Lane in McLean in the Langley Fork Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing modifications to a previously approved ARB application, ARB LF 05 LFK 02 amendment that includes a front garden, guard walls, piers, vehicular entry gates, back garden, newly built solarium. Mila Anatova of Moody Architects is here to present. Ms. Anatova, are you there with us?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm here.
All right, and obviously we've seen this one quite a few times, so feel free to keep it short and sweet. We have your application. Just let us know where the changes are from last time, and hopefully we can move right on to public comments and any questions.
Absolutely, great. Thank you. So can I share my screen?
Hopefully Denise is giving you that access now.
Yes, you should have. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you can see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so I will quickly run through it and open it if there are any questions. So this is the updated rendering that we saw the last time, and the major updates are we've adjusted our construction documents. And just as a reminder, the changes are in this magenta area, the whole front garden, stairs and walls here, small area here and these markup seating areas. So these are the sections. I'm just going to run through it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to interrupt me. And as I said, the main changes are coming up. So this is part of the construction documents showing the pier and the front vehicular entrance. This is the side wall located on the west side. The wall and entry to the garden on the east side. This is the material plan for the back solarium garden with the updates as noted, the grading and drainage plan showing positive grading and positive drainage and modified grading. The lighting plan, as I mentioned before, lighting is predominantly around the main house and the solarium, with leaving the perimeter muted and more subdued in terms of lighting. The next page is showing our updated planting plan with the plant schedule on the site. The next part of the construction documents is loading up very slowly. So this is showing some of the sections we've developed and updated accordingly with the walls and grading, some of the hardscape details showing paving, walls, and different connections important for the construction. More details, this section of the stairs here. Also, there was a picture of the perimeter fence, and this is a detailed picture of the fountain with the curved split face granite. The front garden, again, updated construction document set, the materials plan describing the different materials, the grading and drainage plan for the front garden, followed by the planting plan with the plant schedule here. We're not using any invasive plants. We're keeping a lot of the existing planting as shown here, and just adding a few proposed evergreens and some ground covers for interest. Lighting, again, the same concept, leaving the perimeter not lit, highlighting the entrances and highlighting or lighting up the path leading to the main house. And these are some lighting specifications. The next one is showing the materials that we've already seen and are familiar with, some precedent images. And the last one is the overall rendering. We are working with a civil engineer to submit an amendment to the current permit to have the extension of the front garden included as part of the permit. And we are ironing up and finalizing things with the right-of-way permit, something that we talked about last time. I've met with Robert Burton on site. He's with VDOT to discuss the work. I'm following up with emails and phone calls, and we're going to comply to all the requirements as needed. We're working with Christopher Haska as a civil engineer, and we're using a fountain consultant, Delta Fountain, for the fountain.
Okay. So we've seen this one before. Obviously, before we get to anyone questions, obviously, as always, any members of the public that have any comments, either indicate by raising your hand or typing so in the chat. Or as Denise mentioned, you can also press the *3 button to raise your hand via phone. Denise, if you'll let me know if anyone has any comments.
Sure, I don't see anybody.
Okay, and then obviously I would look to any members that have any comments. Not seeing anyone. Just remember, I cannot see all your cameras. So if you don't hear me calling you and you're waving your hand around, feel free to speak up. All right. Oh, Joe. Okay, Joe, I see your hand raised. Mr. Plumpy, do you have any comments?
Yes, my only comment is you did a fantastic job by presenting tonight, as well as showing what you wanted to be changed concisely. I have no comments on the design. I'd like to make a motion whenever that is ready.
Yeah, Mr. Plumpy stole my thunder. I had to agree. Your presentation was fantastic, and if there are no other comments, and I'm not seeing any, then Mr. Plumpy, I would entertain a motion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I approve that the ARB approve action item ARB 22-LFK-04 for the Schrader Residence Landscape Modifications located at 1000 Dugu Hill Lane, McLean, tax map 0223080004A in the Langley Fork Historical District for the proposed modifications to the previously approved landscape plan ARB 05-LFK-02 amended, as submitted and presented at the June 9th, 2022 ARB meeting.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll gladly second that.
Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No oppositions. Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Anatova. Denise will get with you following this meeting with the information on the approval.
Yeah.
Thank you again for the presentation.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make one quick request to Ms. Anatova. Love to have you come back for a presentation when it's all done. Love to see the final product when it's after installed. Please do that. If it's next year, this year, whenever. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the positive feedback, and we'll definitely make sure we come back with.
They would love to see it. If not,
information.
send photos to Denise if you cannot come in person. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. All right, that moves us on to item number 3 on our agenda. That is ARB 22-HOL-09 7423 Seville Court renovation located at 7423 Seville Court, Alexandria. This is in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is proposing a renovation in kind, rear deck addition, existing front deck expansion, and carport addition. Carlos Leipina represents the application. Looking to see if
Hello.
oh, are you there, Mr. Pan? Oh, there you go. Yes, I see you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Burns. I know you have to make a statement, correct?
Yes, please, if you'll indulge me. And this declaration will apply to all of the presentations tonight for action and in the workshop regarding the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. So, I, John Burns, under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112, parentheses B, close parentheses 1, close parentheses, and 2.2-3115, H parentheses, declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills HOD, and specifically state the following. 1, consideration and approval of proposals on the June 9th ARB agenda involved the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. 2, the nature of my personal interest is that I own and reside in a home that is valued at over $5,000 and is located in the Holland Hills HOD. 3, I am a member of a group of 3 or more persons who are members of which are affected by the transaction. And 4, I am able to participate in the transaction fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, John. Appreciate that. All right, so Mr. Pina, are you still there? And hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, it's Piana. I am waiting for Scott, the architect. He is dialing in right now.
I should be here. Can you hear me?
All right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good. Okay, we have you both there. Obviously, as I mentioned before, since we obviously have had you all here before for a workshop session, if you would try to focus your presentation on where there have been changes and updates to the materials based on that. And since we all have all the materials that were provided to us, and so for the expeditiousness of the evening.
Understand. So I'd like to start, I think, in the front with the front deck. We have adjusted the size a bit to a 14 by 14 square. And we have retained the corner steps that lead to the front door. And there was also a comment about the we're going to retain that 4-foot walkway that goes between the front door steps, the steps of the front door, and over to the 14 by 14 deck, and that will be supported by a beam that will have no visible supports for using a flitch beam there. In the back of the house, we have decided to change the screen porch to a deck, and have shifted the deck to coincide with the 2 existing sliding doors that were on the back of the house that if you open them, you would drop 8 feet. So now at least there's something to walk out onto. And that would include that deck is about 16 by 16. And it's sized to approximately repeat the pattern of the 3-foot wide windows with the railing, vertical posts on the railing. And the stairway would wrap around the corner of the deck, so it's not one continuous run all the way down from the upper level to the lower level. And by shifting the deck, we have before where the location of the screen porch was, it was covering some of the lower level windows, and by shifting, it's helping to open those up a little bit. Then the carport, there were comments about a flat roof versus a gable roof, and my impression was that the ARB preferred the flat roof. However, the DRC seemed to prefer, and also last night approved in their vote, the gable roof that we presented. And I thought it was important to present both options so that it could be seen, and so that we didn't, so that we were considerate of both the boards in their opinions. So we've shown both a flat roof carport and a gable roof carport. Those are the major addition elements. The other issues were the sliding windows versus the awning windows. And again, there was a difference of opinion between the 2 boards in my understanding of what the comments were last month. That the DRC seemed to approve and seemed to prefer and approve the awning windows, and the ARB seemed to me to prefer the sliding windows. So we've shown both of those as well. The driveway will be exposed aggregate. That we have a example of that in our pictures, and we'd be using cable rail between cedar vertical posts and a cedar cap rail. I think that's the majority of what the changes are that I can recall. Yeah, I think that's everything.
All right. Thank you so much for walking us through those and for the clarification on the approval that you got from the Design Review Board. Obviously, first, Denise, are there any members of the public that have any comments on this item?
I see no hands raised.
All right, I don't see any as well, and I will, even though we do go through members first, I'll indicate that we also were sent an email to all staff indicating the Design Review Board approval for this item that occurred. So we're aware of that as well. So thank you for keeping us up to date on that. I will then look to ARB members for comments and questions. So, Joe, you have your hand up. Is that a legacy hand from last time? Okay, legacy hand from last time. Any other members?
Chris, can you see me?
I cannot see you, Steve, but I can hear you.
All right, well, I'm still here.
Go ahead, sir.
So I just want to say, use this as an example from the workshop to here. I think the architect's done a really good job of kind of taking each aspect that we discussed and kind of sensitively detailing them and making improvements. I think everything that's been done on these drawings between what we were first seeing and seeing now has been an improvement. I think they're a very deft hand here. This is the scale of the decks, the fact that it's no longer a porch, but just a deck. Those things are critical to the feel of Holland Hills, and I think that's, you know, very well done. I think the thing I see that comes down to, and my question to Denise is, if we approve something different than what the homeowners association has approved, are we creating an issue? Will the applicant have to go back in front of the homeowners association? Will they have to accept what we approve? How does this play out?
I feel like I can answer somewhat for
Okay.
Denise there, Steve, and I'll let Laura's here too, who has dealt with this, and Denise could too. Obviously, neither one of the two of our boards have purview over the other, and that was something that was made fairly clear during the guidelines and the HOD process, is that while the design review board exists for Holland Hills, they are not an authority that the county has control over, and they are not an authority that has control over the ARB. So it was something that obviously we'd always take into account with our approvals, is what did that board approve or what comments did they make. But neither of the two played on or had authority over the other. So I think the situation, unless Laura or Denise have any other comments on it, would be that obviously the county approves the building permit, but if the design review board disagrees with them, they're going to have to go back and wrangle with that as well if we approve something differently.
Okay. Well, notwithstanding that, it comes down to the carport issue. We've been presented with two options. One's a flat roof and one's a low pitched gable roof. When it comes down to it, I think either one's appropriate in this case, and I actually prefer the low pitched gable roof, though it may not be as authentic to Holland Hills. It's still not, you know, I wouldn't rule it out. I'd actually prefer it. So that's my take on it.
Denise and or Laura, did you have anything more to add on that? I know that was an issue that came up a few times during the HOD process.
I would like to defer to Laura because my answer is the same one that you gave, Chris, but Laura might have more insight. I'll also note that Barbara Ward has raised her hand.
All right, and we'll get to her in just a moment.
Hi, Laura Arsenault, Branch Chief Heritage Resources. My understanding was that, as you said, Chris, they do not have any authority over the other. However, as you also noted too, the ARB is reviewing the building permit and is directly related to the approval of the building permit. So when the conflict arises, they can go back to the DRC and the issue becomes a private matter if the DRC does not agree with the homeowner, if that makes sense. I know it puts them in a little bit of a pickle, but as the county is the issuing authority for the building permit, if we want the building permit approved, they'd have to kind of defer to what the ARB said, and then they can work with the DRC. But Barbara Ward is actually the Design Review Committee chair, and so she might be able to speak more to the process and how it's actually been happening behind the scenes. I would defer to her from the DRC's perspective.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say, and I'll be interested to hear from Ms. Ward as well, but I think Elise and Kay will remember, and obviously Laura from our time with the work group, that the flat roofs were something that we considered to be, part of the home and something that we were considering about the characteristics. So I'll just be interested to see what the differentiations were for why the DRC went with the gabled roof in this case. I don't particularly have strong feelings on it. I just wanted to note that flat roofs was something that we considered as far as the designs of the Holland Hills homes.
All right. I guess since Ms. Ward has her hand up, Denise, do you want to give her the ability to opine on this issue?
Hi, my name is Barbara Ward, and I am the chair of the Design Review Committee for Holland Hills. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. A couple of weeks ago, when these applicants presented their plan to the DRC, they indicated to the DRC that there were two options for the roof of the carport, that it could be the flat roof or the gable roof. My reply and that of the DRC was that the DRC does not, work in options. We want to hear a final decision. They chose gable. We didn't tell them it had to be gable. If they wanted a flat roof, they could have brought us a flat roof. They brought us the gable roof. So if they now decide to present a flat roof, and I'm flabbergasted that that is what they are doing, they will have to come back to the DRC.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ward. All right. Are there any other members that have questions and or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Burns.
yeah, you apparently can't see my image.
I see. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Two comments about flat versus gable roof on carports. I think the idea of having flat roof carports is that they have a less prominent visibility when viewed from the street because of their flat nature. It is not uncommon for a carport to be simply an extension of the main roof of the house, which is something I must admit I have contemplated for my own house. But in this instance, it is deferential to the house in that it is a smaller roof, it's a lower roof, it has a lower gable, it's set back from the front edge of the house, and when you see it from the street, because of the location uphill from the street, honestly, I don't think you'll notice any real difference from the street looking up past the shallow gable slope than you would if it had a flat roof. If I could ask the applicant, is the intent with the gable roof design for it to be a clear story underneath or a flat roof underneath?
I don't know that we've considered that.
Because the whole idea is that for the carport to be minimally visible.
Okay.
And I would think that a wedge shape, that is a gable roof above with a flat roof below, would be a more prominently visible form than a clear story under a gable or a flat roof.
Yeah.
So if you go with if your preferred choice is to have a gable, I would ask it be a clear story underneath and not a flat roof underneath.
Okay. And I had thought that we would put a gable end on the carport to match the house. However, I'm certainly willing to remove that so that you only see basically the edge of the roof, and you would see the ceiling of that. Then that would be a slope ceiling.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Ms. Ward indicated that your preference to the DRC was that the clients prefer to have a gable roof.
No,
is that their?
Yeah, actually, the
client
their
position.
Flat. He preferred the flat roof, but my impression from attending the meeting at the DRC a month ago is that they preferred the gable roof. So that's I was kind of left with I didn't want to disrespect either body. So and I think the primary objection to the flat roof is viewing it from above. You get the TPO and it's not very pretty. And that was, and this house is lower, and there are some other houses not too close, but there's some around that are much higher that would look down on a flat roof.
All right, John, Mr. Burns, any more comments, questions?
No, I would second what Mr. Kalinsky said. I thank the applicant for listening very carefully to the comments from the workshop and to revising the design. I think the front deck, the wraparound steps in the front corner coming up from the driveway, and the relocation and diminution of the rear deck as opposed to a porch, I think are all very positive responses to the feedback you got last time, and I'm very grateful for them. Very thoughtfully undertaken, and the only, like Mr. Kalinsky, the only concern would be the roof of the carport.
Okay, right.
All right, I see Ms. Murray's hand up. Ms. Murray.
Windows. They have given us two options for the windows. So please, architects, do your thing.
Yes, I'm sorry. So yes, we had proposed a casement, an awning window that would be as wide as the fixed windows are, which is about 3 feet, and they would be as tall as the current sliding windows, which I believe are about 2 or 2.5 feet high. That's the one option. The other option would be to replace the existing sliding windows with new sliding windows.
So I was going to say, Ms. Murray took one of the comments I was going to have, since it seemed like no one else had any more. So I'm kind of anathema on the concept of flat versus gabled here. I kind of agree with Mr. Burns that I think it's minimal enough that I wouldn't have an issue in this situation, with particularly given the guidance he's given on it. Preference would be for a flat roof. I have a preference for, if we are replacing a window, we should replace it in kind. And so what is there, we should be doing sliding. We shouldn't be doing a new technique. If we're installing a new window, I'm more, open-minded to it being a different type of function, because it's differentiated itself a little bit. So my preference would be sliding. I think the big thing I'm going to highlight, though, if there are no other member comments, is any motion here is going to need to specify, particularly on those two items, what this board is approving, whether it is a flat roof for the carport or a gable roof, and whether it is sliding window replacement windows or a casement window, I believe is the alternative, correct?
Awning window.
Awning window, sorry. So I agree with Ms. Murray. My preference is sliding, and as Laura has pointed out, we'll let the differences sort themselves out behind the scenes, because that's not what we're here to work through. If there are no other member comments on that, I'm looking up and down. I can see most of you scrolling, and I don't see anyone raising their hand, so I would entertain a motion if there is a member that would like to make one.
Mr. Daniel, I'd be happy to make a motion.
All right, Mr. Kalinsky, by all means.
Okay, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 22-HOL-09-7423 Seville Court renovation located at 7423 Seville Court, Alexandria, tap max 0933160021 in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District for the proposed renovation in kind, rear deck addition, front deck expansion, and carport addition to an existing single-family dwelling as submitted and presented at the June 9th, 2022 ARB meeting, subject to the following conditions: that the carport has a gable roof form, and that the window replacement are windows in kind, specifically sliders at the windows located closest to the floor. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I would second, and may I offer a friendly amendment to the conditions?
Sure.
In that the gable roof on the carport be open and not a closed, clear story and not a closed gable.
Is that acceptable, Mr. Kolinsky?
That's acceptable.
All right, we have a second with a friendly amendment placed on there. And we have a motion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Joe, your hand went up. Or is that an opposition? You're muted at the moment.
Yes, it's an opposition. I'd like to flat roof. That's all. So no big
Okay.
deal.
One nay. Any abstentions? No abstentions. The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us on to our next item, which is number 4, ARB 22 HOL 10, addition to the Beltran residence located at 1815 Drury Lane, Alexandria, in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. Applicant is proposing to add a 2-story addition to the existing house, including a new front entry. Rebecca Bostic is representing the application. Ms. Bostic, are you here with us? I see your screen.
Yes, I am here.
All right. Are you presenting, or are you asking Denise to pull up items for you?
If I can figure out how to share my screen. Oh, I see it.
All right, and as before with the Seville Court one, I know we've seen you for a workshop session, so please feel free to focus on where there are any changes or variations following that session, and we'll get to public comment and any other questions following therefore. I'll let you know when we see your screen. Yes, okay. Your screen is now presenting.
Okay. So just a quick recap. Here's our existing building, our existing pictures of the house. Moving on to the plat, I will tell you one of our comments was that the size should be a little more modest. We did take it from 17.4 down to 16 feet wide right here. So we have shrunk it ever so slightly. One of the comments was the front door, and we did look at that carefully and concluded that the homeowners really had strong opinions and that the front door needed to stay near the front of the house and we showed sidewalk over to the driveway. One of our comments was the hardscaping, screening, and planting. Let me go to the floor plan. At this time, the budget doesn't allow for a landscaping plan. So we do have a couple plants that we're relocating. I do have a dimension for the driveway continues almost up to the end of the addition. So we do show that the driveway cuts back and it extends to about 8 feet to the addition. We will have a little bit of landscaping through here. We're relocating one of the rhododendrons, and we'll probably just match that with a few other plants across the front with a flagstone walk out to the driveway. There won't be any other screening or any other landscaping done at this time. Let me go to the elevation, because the other comment we had was lining up the front elevations. So we played with the stairs and the bathroom and the closets and figured out how to align the windows on the front, which seemed to be rather important comment last time. So the front elevation does have aligning windows at this point. And one of the other comments we had was the front cantilever, and we didn't have a rear cantilever, but now we do have a rear cantilever. So our front and back do match with the cantilevers. And I think that was the extent, really, most of our comments. The other comment we got was the grading. And really, this part of the lot is a flat area of the lot. So the grading is kind of shown as it will exist, pretty much flat. through the addition, and there's a large patio out the back that remains flat. The front part of the addition slopes down to the street. The back beyond the patio slopes up to the next Martha's Road above us. And the only other comment I wanted to bring up was we did have approval last night from the Design Review Committee, but they questioned our side windows. So this screen is actually a little bit different than the application I submitted, in that they wanted the head height of the window moved up 9 inches, which I do show on this elevation. And there's a little bit of discrepancy whether the homeowner and I thought the entire window is shifting up 9 inches, and the Design Review Committee felt that the sill should stay in place, so the windows were actually 9 inches longer. That's not what you're seeing here. You're seeing the original size of the window. I just pushed the head height up to the underside of the header, which was what we discussed last night. Those are our changes. You've got the full packet with the sections and everything else included. If you want me to talk about it, I'm happy to.
All right, I think you walked us through all the changes and responses to the workshop session, so I appreciate that. First, obviously, we'll ask if there are any members of the public that have any comment on that, and then Ms. Ward, since you're there for the Design Review Board, I'll let you speak right after that, since we do take comments from any of those other groups following in the bylaws anyways. So I know if you have your hand up, we'll get to you in a moment. But Denise, are there any other members of the public that have any comment on this item?
I see no hands raised, besides for Ms. Ward's.
All right, Ms. Ward?
Barbara Ward again for the Design Review Committee of Holland Hills. The Holland Hills Design Review Committee did last night give approval to this project. We like the changes in the front. We think it's a more attractive setup with the windows. We have no problem with the front door. We've all lived here for a long time, and we know the necessity of actually having a front door that you and your family and visitors can find. Our only problem was with the windows, the trapezoid windows in the back. The notes of the committee members, and I did check with the other committee members this afternoon, all agree that the agreement that we made last night was that the windows would not move up 9 inches, but rather would be 9 inches higher, because we believe that that additional space or height to the windows would more accurately reflect the style and composition and character of the Holland Hills architecture. That's all I have to say at this point.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ward. Unless Denise, another member of the public, has indicated they have a comment on this one, I will go to the members of the board for any comments or questions on this item. Right now I can see Ms. Murray, Ms. Wan, Mr. Plumpy. So I'm just letting you know I can see you. Not that you necessarily have a comment, but that I can see you on my camera. I see hands up at the moment. Unless Joe, you had a comment.
No comment. No comment. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Joe. Well, since I'm not hearing ones from any of the other, John, I know you have yours. I'm gonna opine mine, since I can say mine too. So I definitely appreciate you coming back and giving us some responses to some of the comments we brought up in the workshop session. I am appreciative of the concerns regarding having an entrance or the views of the homeowner on this, but I went back and went through the National Register nomination for Holland Hills, and in particular, entrances are a very key thing that's noted in that nomination. And so for me, the prominence of this entrance, I mean, in the nomination, it says that walkways to the houses are often curved with principal entrances not always visible from the street. And if they are, they're minimized by design. And I still don't necessarily believe this is minimized by design. I think this is still, and I think it was even said the purpose here is, everybody wants to have an entrance, everyone knows where to go to. Well, that kind of wasn't the design intent here, and this isn't a aesthetics board, this is a preservation board. We do seek to preserve the historic properties that are in our overlay districts. And so in my mind, I see this as still drawing too much attention and creating a false historicism that did not exist through a very prominent entrance. And it so much goes counter to the nomination that I just don't feel like I can support it as presented. And with the windows and the other design features, I think you've done a great job trying to match the design style. I don't begrudge you one bit on that. I think that the selections of materials, the way the windows are all looking, it definitely is something that would look like it should fit there. But from a entrance and perspective of access, it does not meet with the intent of the overlay district in my mind. And so I personally don't think that this is achievable from a preservation perspective. Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to admit, I do concur. Excuse me, I do concur with your comment on the entrance feature, and I acknowledge the changes to the windows, particularly on the front elevation, and also creating the trapezoidal windows on the two side elevations. I think that those are overall improvements in the design and make those a more cohesive design, more consistent with the community standards. But the two concerns that I raised at the last meeting that appear to be totally unaddressed are the fact that this is not modest. This is not differential to the historic house. It's a large two-story addition looming uphill above the house, and it sits artificially aligned with the side yard setback and not with the geometry of the original house, which is kind of rectilinear, as all Holland Hills houses were originally. And so for those reasons, I would have a great deal of difficulty in supporting this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Are there any other members that have comments and or questions? You're raising your hand on the screen. I may not see you if you are doing so. I only see a small snippet of the membership, FYI. All right. Seeing that there are no other comments, I would look for a motion from a member.
Mr. Daniel, I'd like to make a motion, please.
Mr. Plumpy, go right ahead.
Sure. I'd like to make the motion, make sure I get the right one here. I apologize. Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve action item ARB 22 HOL 10, addition to Beltron residence located at 1815 Drury Lane, Alexandria, tax map 0933040021 in the Holland Hills HOD for the proposed two-story addition, including a new front entrance to an existing single-family dwelling as submitted and presented at the June 9th, 2022 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historical overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I can second it.
Seconded by Ms. Swan. Yes. And Ms. Bostic, if there is any way you could drop your screen share, I want to make sure I can see all the ARB members so I can properly tally the vote we have here. Or Denise, if you can reduce that. I just want to make sure I can see everybody so that I can count votes. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Yes.
Before I take the vote, I have a question. What are the options for the applicant? applicant before us taking a vote. Do they have the option to defer for a restudy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the applicant could ask to defer or ask us to make a motion to defer, and we could vote to defer the application for a later resubmission.
But if there is no deferral and there's a vote and it doesn't pass, where does that leave the applicant? Can they come back with changes at that point?
Yes, obviously. So,
but is there a time limit on that?
It doesn't happen very often, but if the ARB can vote to approve, deny, or defer an application, obviously approval, it goes on, and Denise will make sure if the plans come in, she stamps them. It's deferred, they come back with a resubmission. If it's denied, then they can come back for resubmission, seeking our approval again, or they can obviously appeal our denial for the appropriate channels. Denise, Laura, you all might have more clarification on this, county staff.
I believe you explained the process perfectly, Chris.
Okay.
All right. Well, there you go. I got it.
Thank you. That's helpful. I just didn't want to put the applicant in the position that it's an all or nothing proposition, because there are some boards locally here, or a board locally here, that does do that, and you can't come back.
Oh no, you can always come back to the ARB
for a period of time, which I think is 2 years currently.
I think you're like the Hotel California, actually, if anything. No, definitely, obviously, a applicant can always come back. Obviously, there is a motion on the table, unless the applicant wants to suggest that they would come back, and defer, or have us vote to defer and come back following any redesign. That's at their prerogative, but we have a motion on the floor, so I would venture it needs to go to vote.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't putting them in a very difficult position one way or the other. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any more discussion on the motion? All right, we have a motion on the floor.
Actually, Chairman, can I? Yes. Sorry, this is the homeowner. Can I say some words before the vote?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to say that we appreciate the consideration. Really looking forward to the vote. One thing that I would say is we did take a lot of the feedback seriously. The two things that you couldn't see today were things that we really considered, and we just couldn't fit our lifestyle. We do have one of the smallest houses in Holling Hills, and yeah, we're a growing family. So I'll just mention that, and yeah, appreciate the vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we have a motion with a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye and then raising your hand so that I may track. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Aye.
5 in favor. I believe I've counted that correctly. All those opposed?
No.
All right, we have 4 opposed. Any abstentions? No abstentions. Mr. Plumpy, I don't know if I got your vote or not. I'm sorry.
Yes, I approve it. I approve it.
All right, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and 5 opposed. 5 to 4. The motion carries. Denise, did I have that count correct? I believe.
Yes, I was double checking too.
You know, they really should give us a whole little voting buzzer system. All right. Well, the motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right. That takes us on to our last item for action tonight. That is ARB 22 HOL 067314 Stafford Road Carport. Located at 7314 Stafford Road, Alexandria, in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The applicant is seeking recommendation to the Board of Supervisors for a Board of Zoning Appeals for variance to allow a accessory structure detached carport in the front yard on a lot less than 36,000 square feet in area. Mr. Nichols represents the application. I will just remind everybody that this is a ARB application for us to provide recommendation, not approval. So this is not us approving a set of architectural plans for going for building permit. This is us approving or providing our recommendation for the actual variance to allow said accessory structure. So please keep that in mind when Mr. Nichols presents to us. We're not necessarily going a deep dive into his architecture, more into the concept and the allowance for the structure to be there within that variance. All right, Mr. Nichols, are you there?
We're here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Are you presenting, or are you asking Denise to present anything for you?
Denise will present and I can answer questions. And if I could just give a brief 1-minute history.
Well, and I was going to say, you're actually the first time here for us, so you get the full 8 minutes.
I don't think I'll need that for you, sir. Basically, we're the project designer. The owner had asked me to provide a carport. As I go through the neighborhood, my concept was to provide a minimalistic solution using steel and to provide cover for automobiles that are getting tree limbs dropped on them on a corner lot that has 2 front yards, which means I could never build the proposed structure anywhere on that site unless I put it way, way, way in the backyard on a deep slope downhill. So we're asking for your approval, recommendation tonight, excuse me, to allow us to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. We had started this last November. We were given some indication we might be grandfathered in. Then it was decided we needed to come before your board. We appreciate your time. And I will now pass the baton to Denise, who's been extremely helpful to me in the process.
So, Mr. Nichols, I have your presentation up. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If you'd like to walk the Architectural Review Board through what they're seeing.
Okay. What you all folks are seeing right now is the existing site with the existing gravel driveway, the frame shed, and the structure. Initially, when I went before the local design review board, my thought was to do minimalistic damage to the particular site. So we actually located the carport inside the confinement of that gravel driveway on the right side, angled to the house. As we met with the board several times, they indicated they wanted us to bring the carport closer to the house, connecting it to the house. So we kind of have a pergola structure 4 feet wide that goes from my steel structure over the frame roof and then back to the main house. We have a 26-foot setback to the main structure, 23 to the 3-foot overhang. And we're going into the side yard with an 8-foot to the main structure, 5 feet to the overhang. Some of the presentations that Denise will put up shows you kind of view lines. We also have some green screen that we provided to screen the automobile from the street. We do want the house to be the major element. Originally, we had a pitched roof according to the design guidelines of the neighborhood association. They requested it to be flat. So it will be a TPO rubber roof, 3/4 inch, probably plywood on purlins, on steel, painted black underneath, black steel, 4-inch columns. And there's going to be a C10 by 3 channel and a 6-inch channel at the top. So it'll be very minimalistic. You'll be able to see through. The house will be the star of the site. The owner's landscaping will be the star of the site. And I think you can see in this current exhibit number 2, we've really tried very, very hard to minimize any impact. The local citizens board did request us to move it closer to the house. We have to take down a crepe myrtle tree, which is rather mature, and we have to move some of the brickwork to allow the automobiles to pull in and access the drive and the covered parking. So we're going to ask for your approval tonight in terms of a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which we hope to get to in July. We will be back to see you with detailed construction documents, I understand.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Nichols. I kept it down to a cool 4 minutes. So thank you for that. Go ahead.
This illustration just shows a side view from the street, looking at the green screen, which will screen the automobiles. We did screen both sides, on the Stafford Street side and on the downhill neighbor side. There's 2 green screen panels. If you don't know what those are basically a 2x2 grid that's open. We can adhere to the ground. It goes to the steel. We can plant some nice landscaping, which the current owner likes to do. It grows up and provides a little bit of color And instead of seeing an automobile, you're going to see hopefully greenery and a very non-obtrusive structure, and let the house really be the superstar on the corner there, which is what we're trying to do.
All right. Thank you for giving us a look into that, and for highlighting that you'll be coming back to us with full design drawings upon approval by the Board of Zoning Appeals for this. So we'll look forward to that more nuanced discussion in the future. But starting with this, obviously, since this is a recommendation, it still allows for public comment. So Denise, are there any members of the public that have any comment on this item?
I can't see when I'm sharing my screen, so I would.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. I will look at the attendees you have. The only attendee who has their hands up is Miss Barbara Ward. Miss Ward, I don't know if you have a comment on this item as well.
No comment.
All right. Thank you, Miss Ward. I don't see Denise at this point, and Grace, I guess I would ask that you look as well, since you're also behind the scenes there. I don't see anyone who's raised their hands in the attendees section, so I think we can go straight to members. All right, well, with that in mind, I will look to see if there are any members that have any comments. Remember, we're commenting on the recommendation for the variance to allow the accessory structure, not necessarily commenting on the design itself. Joe, I saw your hand up. I wasn't sure if that was for the last one. Okay, no, I see it. There you go. By all means, sir.
Yeah, I was going to say I commend the applicant of what he's showing there, and it's going to be different than what we normally see. I think the green screen is a great product to have there with the vines. It's something that could have been done. You know, green screen has gone a long way since the 1950s, 60s when these homes were built, or 40s. So I think the concept is great. I would fully support this as it comes back for formal approval. That's all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Any other members' comments on the recommendation for a zoning variance? Mr. Burns, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm concerned about the increasing primacy of the automobile and the accoutrements to shelter it that have proliferated in the community that I think are over time eroding the architectural integrity of the community. And this is another example of that, particularly since it encroaches in the front yard and side yard setbacks. Those setbacks are there for a reason, and not every house can accommodate every addition or change that people might want to do. And I think that this is a perfect example of that, of diminishing the integrity of the architecture in order to elevate the primacy of the automobile. I would vote against this. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns.
Chris?
Oh, yes, Kay. Sorry, I don't see you
Yeah,
on there, but by all means.
Yes, I join John in that. I think that the setbacks are there for a reason, and so I would encourage them to work within their setbacks. And it does look attractive, but I don't know if this board is really, is that appropriate that we are trying, like give our approval to try to influence zoning? I'm not sure that that is an appropriate position for us to take as a board.
Well, and that is definitely why we're only going to give our recommendation one way or another. That goes to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And they take our recommendation into account when they consider those appeals. So obviously our lack of recommendation or recommendation does carry weight. Sometimes we don't always feel like it does, but occasionally in some other boards, they do listen to us. So depending on what we say here, could definitely have some weight. Any other members with comments on this item?
Chris.
By all means, Mr. Klinsky.
Okay. Being in the front yard setback, it is prominent, but and I understand Mr. Burns' concerns about the primacy of the house over the vehicles. Nonetheless, there is parking that is going to occur. Those vehicles are going to be there. So something sheltering and disguising or blocking those vehicles isn't necessarily, in my view, a terrible thing. But I think the comments about it being held as closely to the house as possible are valid in this point. And I would think something that is as we say delicate and light as possible, preferably a little bit less height so it doesn't compete with the house as much. But you know, I do like the idea of the green screen. If this is going to go forward, you know, the green screen, the steel frame is going to get us the most delicate of the possible options to make this fit in.
All right, thank you, sir. And I'm going to give my comments as well. This one is definitely, garages are always a tricky situation in the hauling bills, particularly given how the nomination treats them and the optional status they kind of had and the lack of priority they had in the overall design, as well as the setback question, which is another key feature, as I think Mr. Burns has clearly pointed out. Because we're looking at a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals and not necessarily full architecture yet, I'm a little bit more pragmatic than I was with a two-story addition that completely destroys a entranceway and changes the complete rotation of a house, compared to the opportunity for potentially good design that might be able to show a garage could be done. Since I know that is still something that we're going to have to go through, and I would hope that we could potentially have a workshop discussion on what that's going to look like, because there are ideas there that I think could be promising. But looking at what we're looking at now, I think part of its precedent in my mind is, you know, if we start granting exceptions to the setbacks, you know, is it a floodgate situation? But at the same time, if we take a strong position on what we can find acceptable within those setback changes, you know, are we kind of setting our tone for what we'd like to see in the future? I'm willing to be flexible either way in my mind, since this is at this point just a recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals, but I think I'm going to be more concerned when we get to the architecture side of things and the full set of plans. Those are my comments for what they're worth. Any other members? I don't see anyone else putting up their hands. With that in mind, I would look for a motion if a member would like to make one. And remember, this is a motion for a recommendation, so it is a different motion from the list ones that you've been provided, if you're going to make one.
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt. This is Laura Arsenault.
Oh, yes, Laura.
Just a point of clarification. This variance is for a detached structure in a front yard. And there was some confusion and miscommunication about setbacks. So this variance is supposed to be for a detached structure in a front yard of a lot less than 36,000 square feet. That's what the variance is coming for. So the comments about the setback don't really apply in this situation. That's not part of the variance. It's just
understood
in the front. So I just wanted to point out that.
No, thank you for that clarification there, Laura. Mr. Burns.
So if this is only about a variance to allow an accessory structure in a front yard, is it a separate issue to seek to build in the side yard and front yard setbacks that would need to also come back to us?
Denise, I think we have Kevin McMahon, who's the staff coordinator for the variance application. If he could speak to that, I just don't know the intricate.
Sure. This is Kevin McMahon. I've been listening. I'm the staff coordinator working on the variance with Mr. Nichols, and my supervisor, his name is Brent Krasner. And Brent Krasner and I, we spoke about this when I saw the advertisement in your agenda for tonight's meeting. And my supervisor wanted me to make it clear, like Laura just did, that it's a request for a detached structure in a front yard on a lot less than 36,000 square feet. With regards to like 10 foot or 8 foot or 5 foot side yard setback, what I told Denise was there is no side yard setback for an accessory structure, detached accessory structure in a front yard. So I mean, I know what everyone's thinking, but technically, when you get permission to build a detached structure in a front yard on less than 36,000 square feet, that, you know, there's no minimum yard setback from which to request a reduction from. Does that help explain? No.
Okay, that to me tells me this opens a floodgate. If the simple solution is to get a variance to build an accessory structure in a front yard, it can be placed anywhere in that front
Well, what
yard?
I don't want to step on your toes, but what I can tell you is they will be required to build it as shown on their variance plat. And I don't know if that was shown to you tonight. I don't remember, but I have a copy of their variance plat, and it shows where the structure is permitted within the front yard. It's just
Right. Now, I'm not saying that this particular applicant would move it. All I'm saying is that is this a means of someone avoiding front and side yard setbacks is to go through the BZA and get an accessory structure in a front yard variance?
it's on a lot less than 36,000 square feet. I've worked on more than one. This isn't the first one. It's just one that's in a historical overlay district. But other homeowners, if they want to have a detached structure in their front yard, it requires a variance when they have less than 36,000 square feet. And it happens a lot on corner lots. People have things in their front yard because they treat it as their side or their rear. But I'm not sure of the hypothetical situation. It would just be each time, if it's in a historical overlay district, they would need to come through your office, I guess.
Would the same technique then apply if someone wanted to put an accessory dwelling unit in a front yard?
Accessory living unit, if it's on less than 2 acres, you're not allowed to have it in a detached structure. But now the way the zoning ordinance is, accessory living units in a detached structure, you're required to have a minimum of 2 acres. And if it's, well, let's think about it. If it's greater than 36,000 square feet, they are allowed to have a detached structure in their front yard on greater than 36,000 square feet. It just must meet the minimum front yard setback. So I mean, that's actually one of the requirements. They can't put it right up by the road. If it's a 30-foot front yard setback, they need to be set back 30 feet when they have more than 36,000 square feet. Does that help?
Yeah, okay. So a shed, a garage, or a carport as a detached structure in a front yard is achievable through this process of getting a zoning variance.
Variance, right. What I would tell you.
36,000 square feet. Okay.
Yeah, less than what I would tell you.
This is a big deal, is what the way this strikes me.
Well, I'll let Laura speak to it. Laura used to work in our office, but I mean, I've been here 5 years, and it's been this way for the time that I've been here. I don't know.
Yeah, as Kevin mentioned, it's been a long time, Kevin. No, I'm just kidding. But there are throughout the county, there are applications that come in for variances for structures in front yards. It's not just, this just happens to be the first one in a historic overlay district. So really, I'm trying to guide us back to the topic here, is that the ARB needs to make a recommendation on whether or not they support this variance proposal, not the architecture, just the variance itself. So, but it is something that's allowed in the zoning ordinance. It does happen, as Kevin mentioned, a lot on corner lots. This lot has 2 front yards, so it limits where they can put structures. If this was a regular, through lot, 1 front yard, they could put it in a side yard and it wouldn't be a variance, but it just happens to be the way the lot is set up.
Laura, I think the other thing is that every time, because this is an overlay district, it is going to have to come to us for our recommendation, for approval or denial of that, or giving a recommendation or no recommendation on it. So I think John's point is that obviously this is a means to do that, a detached structure, but I think it doesn't necessarily negate the setback issue, even though that's not what we're giving our recommendation on right now, because the structure is still affecting the setback precedent that's set by this overlay district. So even if it's not the issue on discussion, it's still being impacted.
Understood.
So, Mr. Daniels, if they get a zoning variance approved, they're going to have to come back in front of us,
Yes,
and then we have authority then to review and approve it.
correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. I think that was all discussion. I'm not seeing any other hands up. So at this point, I would entertain a motion regarding whether or not we want to provide a recommendation to Board of Zoning Appeals for this item. I'm not seeing any hands. Ms. Albury, are you willing to make a motion?
I am, Mr. Chairman. I move that the ARB recommend approval of action item ARB 22-HOL-06 for 7314 Stafford Road Carport, located at 7314 Stafford Road, Alexandria, tax map 0933040058 in the Holland Hill Historic Overlay District for the proposed variance to allow an accessory structure detached carport in a front yard on a lot less than 36,000 square feet in area, as submitted and presented at the June 9th, 2022 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of zoning ordinance 3101 historic overlay districts.
Thank you, Ms. Albury. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Murray, I believe. All right. We have a motion on the floor. I'll do again. All those in favor indicate by saying aye and raising your hand. 3, 4.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. I have 4 in favor. All those opposed.
Opposed.
And I have 5 opposed. The motion does not carry. All right, at this point, the ARB does not able to provide its recommendation to the Board of Zoning Appeals for the variance.
Can I ask what that means?
Mr. Chairman, a point of clarification.
Yes.
Does that mean we say that we do not recommend approval, or does we just not offer any comment?
It's a good question I'd raise to Laura and Denise.
So the vote that you just took was to approve a recommendation of approval. If you wanted to make a recommendation of not approval, I think you might need to make another motion to take action. So if you were going to, for instance, write a letter, but we could also just forward the minutes to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Kevin, do you have any thoughts?
I'll defer to Laura. I mean, I don't want to muddy the waters. I don't.
Laura, do you have any thoughts?
Should
it be a separate motion, or should they?
My thought is that they had a motion for approval and that it did not carry. So it was not supported, therefore. But I do agree that I think they need to take another motion to say formally that they're recommending denial. Because they could say they could defer and come back, right? That could be another option.
Right. I think if you wanted to recommend denial, then I think you'd need another motion.
Yeah. That's my thought. Mhm.
Would it be okay if I made a comment? Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Nichols. I have a feeling you have a question about what that means. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to add to the board's consideration that on the street, I believe there's 4 carports already constructed that did receive zoning variances. If that would help your deliberations.
We already voted.
None of which came before this board.
And I guess I would have yeah, so I think that point is well appreciated, Mr. Nichols, and Mr. Burns has clarified that obviously before that, no such variance had to come to this board for our recommendation. So as you can see by the number for this application, that this is number 6 in Holland Hills. We're only in 6 applications for the whole overlay district overall. So these are newer waters for this overlay district. So what that means, I can't speak for what the Board of Zoning Appeals does when they have a recommendation to not approve given from another board. Kevin, I don't know if you can provide any context on that.
It's Kevin McMahon. You know, they want to value the input from the architectural review board. I can't say if it will be the deciding factor. It sounds like he's going to need to come back in front of you if he were to get approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and you'll have a chance to review his drawings. The Board of Zoning Appeals, they're going to want to maybe understand what was it maybe that your office, your department did not like about it, your board. I don't know if you're willing to provide, if you want to go on the record and say this, and maybe give Mr. Nichols a chance to come back. That's just coming in my mind right now.
Well, I think the comment from Laura is true that we would have to make a motion providing our recommendation. And I think the minutes from this meeting would reflect the board's opinions on our concern regarding the variance. Obviously, we could convey our opinions to the Board of Zoning Appeals, but I think that first and foremost, the meeting minutes will speak to that. And I would encourage that since we're going to have to make a motion to reflect that, that could be conveyed in that motion as well by any member that wanted to make a motion.
And Chris, also, myself or Denise will be at the public hearing. So if there are questions, we can speak to that as well.
Understood.
So Laura is the staff coordinator from Heritage Resources for this at the Board of Zoning Appeals. So just to clarify, to make sure that everybody is aware of that.
All right. So, Mr. Burns.
Mr. Chairman, I note that this was a close vote. And so I don't think it would be hugely beneficial to go back and attempt to force a vote of we recommend not approving this. I think that this is a divided board, as we were with the last approval. And so I think we just let the minutes and the vote stand for themselves. And I think that would be adequate to convey our message.
Understood. I think that's a fine solution. And as is pointed out by Mr. McMahon, as well as others, if the Board of Zoning Appeals grants approval, this project will come back to us for full review for architecture. All right, so those meeting minutes and everything will be conveyed to the Board of Zoning Appeals, along with all the comments, and Laura and Denise will be able to reflect the board's opinions and any questions provided. All right, Mr. Nichols, depending on how that goes, we potentially look forward to seeing you in the future for an application if the variance is approved, or coming back for another variance proposal.
We want to thank you for your time this evening and your deliberations.
Thank you, sir. All right, that takes us out of our items for action and brings us into our items for workshop session. I will remind the applicants that are here for workshop session that just like the applicants for action, you have 8 minutes for your presentation. Try to keep it focused on the concept and what you're proposing, so that then we can get to the feedback from the membership about your proposed future application. That in mind, Denise and I will have a timer and we'll try to ping you to let you know when you're getting closer. We've gotten snarled on a bunch of fun bureaucracy for many of our last few, so that's the big thing. Thankfully, we don't have any votes on these. All right, so our first one for workshop session is ARB 22 HOL 07WS 7204 Beechwood Road. This is in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The project is proposing the renovation and addition of an existing one-story house. The addition is consisting of a first floor entry foyer, office, and partial second floor primary bedroom and bath. Mr. Isek, I might be mispronouncing that, represents the project.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Deborah Lerner, and I'm going to be representing instead of Matthew Bishke, which is a tough name. I don't blame you, tonight on behalf of CDB. And our clients, the Hoots, who live on Beechwood Road, I believe are here as well. If there are any questions for them at any point in time, you can tune them in. So before I go ahead and share my computer, just one point of note. We actually have taken this project to the Holland Hills DRC already, just as a point of interest. We did receive approval from them with one caveat, which I'll get to just a moment in our presentation. But I thought the most effective way to go through this would be just to walk you through the presentation that we gave to the DRC, because it does a really good job conveying the design intent and the scope of the project. So I will not talk your ears off. I know it's late. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see this now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. So essentially, and I'm just going to, in a real nutshell, we're taking an existing Holland Hills home that was originally a type 2 model from Holland Hills. And our intention is to add, sorry, step back. First of all, to remove a poorly built pre-existing addition that doesn't align with Holland Hills and is poorly constructed. So first of all, we're going to strip that away. And then we intend to build a partial second story addition, which effectively brings it in line with the original type 3 Holland Hills model. Almost exactly, right? There are a lot of similarities. We'll go through that. There's a small first floor foyer addition as well. And you can see here on the lot survey, this is just the existing home. It's sort of at an angle to the street, so it doesn't have a massive presence on the street already. The entry is kind of blocked. I heard you talk about that in another presentation earlier. And you can see the footprint of the existing single-story home. This bump out in the back is the pre-existing addition we're going to rip off. And then this shaded blue area is the second-story proposed addition, and the cream is the first floor addition. These are some good sort of just images so that you can get a sense of where it is on the street on Beechwood. The red circle notes the house. I'll just point out to you real quickly that the house just next door that you hopefully can see my mouse moving around is very similar in a lot of ways to what we're proposing, in that it's got a partial 2-story structure on the street side on the front of the house, which is what we're sort of proposing for this property as well. The house on the other side of this property has been added to many times over the years. You can sort of see how it's crawling along the landscape. Again, this is the street view of the house. On the left, you can see the existing 2-story neighbor, and that's essentially at a different angle what we're trying to do to this house here to sort of keep in line with that. Some more views. I won't waste your time. This is just to give you a sense of the landscape and who can see what. I want to get to the renderings so that you can really see what we're intending. Okay, so we'll just jump right in. So on top is the existing home, the existing type 2 model. And the same view is is the proposed view on the bottom. And I'd like to point out a couple of things. The first is that caveat I mentioned from the DRC approval. We got positive feedback on this addition with one exception, and that is that they prefer that this second story front-facing exterior wall at the balcony be moved to align exactly with the first story front-facing exterior wall. What you're seeing in the rendering is just a very slight jog. That's not an issue for us. Quite frankly, we've already made that change in the drawings. It just didn't make it into this presentation in time. The second thing I'd like to point out is that the original entry to the house is on the corner of the house. You can see it's got a covered entry with a post at the corner. The entry door is recessed back. We haven't really changed that concept at all. The idea is that that entry still remains at that front corner, recessed under a covered area with a post. We've added a side light, some extra windows and fenestration around the house. But in terms of the feel of the entry, it's specifically intended to be as closely aligned with what is pre-existing. Here's a view of the house. You never quite see it from this angle unless you pull all the way up the driveway, but you can, this is a great view of the second floor box that we're talking about adding. It's pretty straightforward. I don't think I need to say a whole lot about it. We've spent some time aligning the windows and making sure that they meet the exact dimensions and specifications of the existing Holland Hills windows. And all of the materials, T111, the low slope roof, everything. There's really, to be honest, nothing that we're proposing here that is out of line with the original materials, with one exception, and that would be that we need a railing on this balcony that we're proposing on the second floor. The design intent is that it be as open as possible and as minimal as possible. I think that this is just a workshop, so we haven't developed every exact sort of detail of the railing, but the idea, I think, is that it would probably match very closely with some of the image that a previous presenter had of a cable rail. I don't know, remember that one? There is no intention to change any landscape at this point in time. The driveway doesn't need modification. There's no landscaping that needs to be torn out. So there's really zero landscaping at this point in time. That may be a future project that comes down the road, but it's not in the scope right now. The grade is also flat at where the house sits, not everywhere on the lot, but where the house sits. And because the bulk of the addition is on the second story, it barely touches the grade at all. It's just the small addition at the front. So there's no regrading happening or anything of that sort. And the area of disturbance that's calculated with this kind of work, we sort of done those code calculations, is well below the 2,500 square feet for requiring that sort of grading information, just as a side point. Here's a view of the rear of the house. At the top, this is the funky original addition that we're planning on taking off. Just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Again, we're trying to revert as much back as possible to sort of the original. And this is the new view. What you're seeing out the back is the idea of a trellis to get a little bit of shade outside of the rear of the house. But again, as I said, there really isn't a plan in place at this time to deal with any patio area or whatnot in that space. It's just really the house construction we're talking about now. Here are the floor plans, just to give you a reference point. Forgive me, this is the first time I've done a workshop with you. I'm not sure how much you want me to get into some of these details, but you can feel free to ask me questions and I can move back to these pages at any time.
No, I think if once you've walked through the general concept, what we'll do next is we'll go around and let the members who have questions or comments give you their feedback. And obviously, one thing for a workshop is if you don't necessarily have an answer, or you don't necessarily have to solve the problem today, with this late hour, but knowing where our concerns are, that lets you know when you come back, you can respond back to those changes and address them when you, like some of the previous applicants have presented and highlighted.
Sure.
So unless you've got another page to show, we can definitely go around because we don't do public comment in workshops.
Yeah, we can definitely go around. I would just ask, I came to this meeting with one question I wanted to ask, but we can circle back to it at the end. It's not really about a design issue. So if you'll just indulge me at the end, if I can just ask you guys.
Well, and obviously feel free to ask your question now, though, because one member may want to input on it.
Well, I'll just
That's
go
why
ahead
we're
and tell
here.
you. It's actually, I hope it'll be, you may not be able to give me the answer right now, but I think it will be an easy question to answer. When we originally submitted this through the portal, Denise was kind enough to give us a very helpful email back with a lot of information in it. We really appreciate that. In that email, she listed a number of items that really need to be included to make it an action item on the agenda beyond this presentation. But the way that the email is written, it says, submit any missing materials. Please feel free to ignore those items that do not apply. I'm not sure. I want to make sure I'm clear on what you feel applies.
Sure.
So that I don't misjudge what we think doesn't apply. Does that make sense?
I think we can, through our discussion, can get you more detail on that. But obviously, when we look for submission for application, we're looking for construction drawings. That's something that obviously can be built and is going to get an approved building permit. So conceptual plans or things like that. Some of the things that Denise may be referring to in the email are things like materials information. So obviously, we're meeting digitally. So this board does not obviously have material samples brought into us anymore, but references and information about what materials would be being used, colors and things like that as appropriate. And then some of the other exceptions that she might be also referring to are things like landscaping and other site-related plans, depending upon the type of project. Obviously, if a project is fully modifying an existing building and there is no site work, there may not be a site plan. So that may not be something that's necessary, but it depends on that. But we would want all the appropriate architectural and as appropriate engineering drawings required for submission for a building permit is what she's getting at. But I think I'll let my other fellow members speak to some of the things that they might be looking for, as well as some of their comments on the concept you're proposing to come forward with final design in the future. So hopefully that got to some of what you were asking.
Yeah, it does. And I think as we continue to talk, it'll become more clear to me whether you feel we need some of those, like a topographic survey for a project of this scope, just as an example.
Understood. All right. So with that presentation, with the presentation done, I would go to the various members to see if any of us have comments. Looking right now, John, it looks like your hand's up. So unless that's a legacy hand.
That was a legacy hand, but since you called on me, I guess I'll go first.
Okay.
At first, I need to be transparent and let everyone know that I am a professional colleague and friend of the husband in this application, Jeremiah Huth. And so that's, I may decide in the end that I should recuse myself from this, but I did want to offer some observations since this is just a workshop and a less formal consideration. You mentioned in your presentation that you were going to replicate the T111 siding. The unit house number 2 designs originally had tongue and groove siding, vertical tongue and groove siding. Has that been replaced on this house?
Do you remember? Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I really thought it was T111, but Jeremiah and Tiffany, who own the home, are on this call, and I'm sure they can answer. I really thought it was T111, but I mean, I've been proven wrong before.
Yeah, generally the T111 is on the houses that were constructed from prefabricated panels.
It's the original siding.
Okay, well,
It's original.
we'll match the original siding then.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then an observation in putting a second story on this, I made a comment earlier about a house on Drury that you're taking a one-story house and you're putting a second story on part of it. In this case, about 60% of it looks like, and it's on the uphill side, kind of looming over the street. You very correctly and accurately pointed out that the houses on either side have already had some changes akin to this. So in this instance, I think that the second story mass is a little less prominent. However, the character defining element of the end of the unit house number 2 is the big brick chimney mass in the inset corner. And this will consume that in the new addition. And so that's something that's a character defining feature of the house that will be lost, and that's a concern. And the new front elevation, if you could go back to the plans, I think it was the before and after plans of the first floor, or maybe it was just that one. This one will be fine. When you put the addition on, what became the inset porch on the original is now a filled-in mass, and those windows that would be like where the dining room is supposed to be are now shifted over. So you're physically going to move those windows, or are you going to construct new windows?
So actually, not all of them are brand new. It's only shifted over just a matter of feet. So what
Okay.
you're seeing there are a couple of existing ones and one new one.
Okay, all right, but anyway, that's something you all are going to have to figure out. Also, you
Yeah,
said
yeah.
that the design inspiration was the Unit House 3, which is essentially a Unit House 2 on a sloped site, so that you can get it upstairs, downstairs. But in order to carry the vertical load coming down from the second floor, the vertical members between adjacent windows on the first floor in a Unit House number 3 are 3x6s, not 2x6s, as they are in this house. So how are you going to carry that extra load of the second story down when you don't have as robust a vertical support mechanism with the existing windows? You don't have to answer that. That's just something you're going to have to deal with. And I just wanted to make you alert to that. And if you could go to the renderings on the back side, that is the living room side, there. Okay, here you're taking those same row of 7 windows with the 2-inch verticals, 2x6 verticals, and you're putting a second story. Now it's open there, so you don't have as much load, and originally that supported the roof, and just the roof is now a little taller, so that the load hasn't changed a whole lot. But if you can see my hand on the screen, right now you've got the the ceiling is supporting laterally that long wall of windows. So if you take that ceiling out and you put another story of windows up there, how are you going to prevent that wall from collapsing sideways? Because you essentially double the effective length of that, and because you have new construction on top of it, cantilevered out, you kind of have a hinge in the middle. So again, that's a structural issue that you all are going to have to deal with. That could get a little tricky. So I just wanted to be aware of that. Those were my comments. Thank you for your time and for the presentation. And I hope I've given you all something to think about, but also something that you're going to have to work out to make this project work.
All right, thank you, John. Any other members with comments or observations to share with the applicant? Seeing any other members? Hands up. Mr. Kalinsky, you're the only person who doesn't show up on my screen. So yes, Steve, Mr. Kalinsky, by all means.
That would be convenient if I was trying to hide from you like normal. But a lot of what Mr. Burns said, I think there are structural remedies for all that. My concern with those structural remedies is that they're going to be more intrusive to the existing architecture. And there's going to be a lot of rebuilt existing architecture, which tends to lose then the character of what was originally there. So my concern going forward with that is are we going to lose that actual historic material in order to make this addition happen on the second story? The window arrangements on the front, I think we've lost some. If you don't mind switching back to the front view.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. You lost some of what the Goodman house. I'm going to say some of the feel of it with the one story with that long bank, even though they're not all tall windows. By kind of separating the windows out and breaking them out, I think you've lost some of the, I'm going to say, the authenticism or the flavor of it. I just think that's something you need to study to see how you can make that feel right. The balcony above the front porch, I would like, I would need to look around and see if there are more examples of that or something that to get me more comfortable with how that plays out. So just a few of my comments offhand, looking at this. I mean, I think it has promise, but I think there's a lot more work to be done to kind of really pick up on the authentic detailing, and you know, the one thing, and I understand how it works into your plan, but the loss of that chimney mass on the side of the building is kind of unfortunate. It'd be great if there was a way to incorporate that or find that back on the new face of the building, but I don't know how that you would, you know, I don't know how to propose to you how to do that, other than to say that would be a an element that's prized.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kalinsky. Not seeing any other members with their hands up. I'll provide my observations as well. I agree with Mr. Kalinsky, Mr. Burns. I mean, based on my comments earlier on another second story addition project, I am very concerned about what second story additions do to the structures, particularly given how simplistic their design is, that they can very quickly overwhelm and overload the original design intent. And in this one, I'm having a hard time separating that this is not just a different version of the original house put on top of the other one. And I think part of that gets to the concern that both Mr. Burns and Mr. Kalinsky talked about with the chimney. You've lost what I think was a major anchoring point in the original design of kind of, you know, signifying this was a side of the house, and now it's just been absorbed inside the structure. And I again, like as was just said, I can't necessarily design to you how do you correct to that. I do, on the other hand, appreciate that the front entrance is not becoming opulent, I suppose. Instead, it's still continuing to be just there on the corner. The balcony on the top of it, above it, doesn't really, you know, doesn't bother me so much, and it doesn't necessarily draw away from the entrance or draw too much attention to the entrance. So that's okay. I also kind of have some concerns that were pointed out with the window massing that's been changed now. That'll change on the ground floor. I'm not as familiar with all the different versions of the various types in here, the one that you're trying to now replicate with the new addition on top of it. But I do think with the loss of the exterior chimney and the breaking up of the window massing, it does overwhelmingly seem to dilute some of the intent of the Goodman design. And if there are ways that we can try to rectify that in a submission for approval, I think this is much more approachable than other additions, two-story additions I've seen so far. I mean, it definitely is still a large structure on top of the original, but I'm less feeling as though it's going to overwhelm it in the same way, if that makes any sense, I suppose. It may or may not. But those are my comments there. Again, so I know you asked the question about what we'd be looking for. Obviously, we're definitely going to be looking for architectural drawings. I think sections will be very helpful, because I think Mr. Burns, as well as I had a question as well about some of the loads that this would be holding now when this is being put together. That's a lot of glass and a lot of new weights. I'm not an engineer, nor am I an architect. I just love preserving the stuff they build. So I would want to make sure that there's accurate drawings to reflect what's going on here. I can't speak for our landscape architect, but since you said you're not going to be doing any landscaping, I think, you know, that would not be something we'd be very concerned about. Exterior lighting, if there's going to be any additional lighting changes, we would want to know that information as well as any information about if you're going to match the existing siding, you know, making sure that's very clear in the plans, so that all that information is there. Because I would say in previous applications, we've asked a lot of questions about cantilevers and how gutters and how overhangs are being designed, so that should all be there. We do want to see a full set of construction drawings, so that we know that when it goes to building permit, it's something that they would approve. You know, we expect the same courtesy. Unless there's any other member comments, I'm looking up and down. John, you have your hand up digitally, and you saw your finger there. You're muted though.
One more comment about the unit house type 3 and the second story, and the reason why it was cantilevered is that allowed the fact that although the glass sizes are different, the verticals between the adjacent panes of glass are different. And so the window spacing is different on the first floor from the second floor. And with the cantilever, your eye kind of tends to line things up, but it never really lines up. And with the cantilever, the offset is enough that you don't notice it. And you think it all looks okay. And so your rendering that's up on the screen at the moment appears as though you're attempting to get them to all line up. But you'll never really see that in 3D and lined up exactly as it would be in an elevation drawing. So that's, if you need to put thicker vertical units between windows on the first floor, that's why the cantilever was there. It disguised the fact that they're very, very subtly different in dimension.
And I think I'm going to just piggyback on John's observation here. While these renderings are all wonderful, if you were here for other parts of our meeting, the drawings are what we are going to scrutinize. And if you show us a rendering and say that's what you're going to build us, and then the drawings don't reflect that, we're going to have obviously some agita, to quote my Italian wife, about that. And there's going to be a lot of trouble making a motion one way or another. So the drawings are what are going to be the presiding document. And so we'll want that to reflect genuinely what we're going to see. And renderings are always nice and helpful for us to understand, particularly for some of us who aren't architects, but keep in mind that can lead to some confusion when those materials come in, if there's discrepancies. All right, not seeing any other comments or questions from board members. Otherwise, I imagine we'll see you all again in the future. You obviously could come back for application, or if you feel you want to come back for another workshop, that's always an option as well. We leave that to your discretion.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lerner. All right, that takes us on to our last workshop item, ARB 22HOL 08WS Paul Spring Road Pedestrian Bridge Replacement Project, located on Paul Spring Road. This is in the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The project is proposing to replace a deteriorated pedestrian bridge located adjacent to an intersection on Paul Spring Road and Ripon Road. Peter Vigoletti from the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services, DPWES, is representing the project. And now for something completely different. And Mr. Vigoletti, are you here with us?
Okay, there we go.
There we go. Now I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes. And we see your
21st century technology.
All right. So we can see your screen, and so feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay, let me just move you out of the way. There we go. Okay, this is about the Paul Spring Pedestrian Bridge Project DPWES wants to replace. My name is Peter Vigliotti. I work for DPWES, the Maintenance Stormwater Management Division. Let me switch screens. Okay, this is a pedestrian bridge we want to replace. A little difficult to see with the aerial view and the trees covering the bridge. Here's Paul Spring Road, here's Ripon Road, and here's where the bridge is located. A small bridge crosses a stream. This is a picture of the existing bridge. You can see it's a wood timber bridge with metal railings. The wood timber structure is a little tight. You can see the bridge is sagging. The deck is uneven, and the abutments are settling. So the bridge is a little tight. We're looking to replace it. We want to replace it with the fiberglass bridge with the wood decking. We're going to use stainless steel hardware. We're going to have the bridge sit on helical piles, concrete abutments, concrete approaches, handrails on the approaches. And because the bridge, Paul Spring Road, is in a floodplain, we're going to try to strengthen the new bridge a little bit to mitigate flow and debris impact. We can't make it flood proof or impact proof, but we can mitigate as best we can. These are the conceptual plans or preliminary plans. Move out of the way. This is the existing condition. This is where the bridge is. Here's Paul Spring Road. Here's Ripon Road. You can see
Mr. Vigoletti, there's something blocking your screen because all we're seeing is hatching.
Okay.
It may be that you're sharing you're only sharing the application and not your screen itself.
Maybe that's what the problem is. Yep. Okay, let me see if we could come up with a plan B. Bear with me 1 second.
I have it up if you need me. Okay.
Okay, might have to end the slideshow. Okay. Okay, let me go back.
We're still seeing the PowerPoint at this point. So if the original time you clicked share screen, you only click the share the PowerPoint, it's only going to always show us that.
Yep, let me, okay, I'll have to.
If you want, Denise can also pull those plans up. I think she was saying.
Okay, go ahead, Denise.
That'll help make it easier for you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to point with my cursor.
Yeah, you'll just have to tell me when to advance the slides because I'm not very intuitive. Thank you, Grace. Okay. All right. Let me find. This is it. So this is the last application, or maybe a few before that. There we go. So could you tell me what slide you're on? I'm sorry.
Okay, okay, yeah, actually, if you're pulling off the PowerPoint, you're gonna have the same problem I have. You won't be able to access it. You could try. One more slide. Yeah, you won't be able to access it. Let's try that.
Is that the preliminary layout that you wanted to show us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Denise, is that file that you also have that you can share?
Yeah, I am. Let me look at my in the.
Because that was in the workshop files.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't put those plans on the PowerPoint because the PowerPoint messed up the size and weren't visible.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen just for a minute and look for the file. I'll be right back.
Y'all remember the day when we used to just have things rolled out in front of us?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I have it open on my screen if you want me to share it.
Yeah, Grace, if you'll give John the authority, he can pull it up.
Okay, John, I just gave you presenter.
I have a lot less paper cuts now that we don't have as much paper out there rolled up.
All right, John, you're starting to share the.
Okay, there it is.
All right. So if you just want to direct John through what you want him to show us.
Okay, I don't know if you could blow that up a little bit, John.
Want me to blow it up?
Yeah, if you can. Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, if you look on the right-hand side, you can see some hatching where we're going to remove part of the trail right there where John cursor is. And then if that moves to the left a little bit, that's where the existing bridge is that we're going to demo and remove. And then going to the left a little bit further is where we're going to remove the asphalt and repave that again. I'll place concrete. Okay, next page. Scroll down a little bit. There we go. Awesome. Yep. Just go up. Yep, right there. Perfect. Okay, that's where the new bridge is. We're going to bridge over the existing abutment, so we're going to lengthen the bridge a little bit. And then you can see we're going to do the new paving that just replaced what was removed previously with the new asphalt, new approach slabs in that area. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, this is the profile of the bridge. You can see the new concrete abutments. The bridge is going to be a little bit higher than the existing bridge. We're going to put slopes on the side to conform to ADA criteria. And we're going to put in down below those concrete abutments, we're going to have helical piles to support the bridge. So that's the preliminary plans that we have in place right now to do the work.
Okay. Is that it? All you
that's
need
it.
me to show?
Yep.
Okay. So I will stop sharing then.
All right. So with that in mind, we'll go around, let members who have any comments or observations on this one. I've got you all on my screen this time so I could see you if you actually physically raised your hand or if you raise your hand as a participant in the chat function. Any comments from any of the members on this? Kay, I see your hand up. Just slightly but underneath the camera lens, but you raised it up.
I'm not real fond of the change of the handrail once it gets onto concrete. I would think that the handrail should, I don't know, somebody else join in with me on this one.
Well, Kay, I mean, I'm happy to comment on it. I just feel like there's I looking at the other bridge, yeah, it definitely needs to be replaced. I get it. That's
Yes.
no brainer there. But the transition between the materials is just
Yes.
a little jarring. I would have rather had consistency one way or another.
Yes.
And because I understand that the initial handrails are probably obviously to meet ADA requirements so someone can grab them, but I was kind of like, well, could that not continue across as opposed to like the transition from one to the other just feels like,
yes,
wow, okay.
Right.
Yeah,
And I understand. I think that the handrail in the middle section is probably reinforced for debris and stuff. Is that right, Peter?
Well, actually, we're going to, the bridge itself, the fiberglass members that will support the deck and the handrails will be reinforced to mitigate the debris and water impact.
Couldn't we sort of bring that design out on either side and not go to this chrome, you know, or whatever?
Yeah, that's galvanized. The handrail and the structure is actually fiberglass. It's not possible to put fiberglass on the concrete.
Oh.
So we're going to put in a fiberglass structure. It's just lightweight.
I don't know. Somebody, okay, Joe, sorry.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chairwoman Orr. Appreciate that very much. No, there's no problem. I was going to say that I wholeheartedly agree. I'm the landscape architect on the board, and I think there's ways to make it look more compatible with each other. Is that a prefab bridge that's already made off-site and just drop it on the piles?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, as I figured. I think let's do a different design for the galvanized metal. Maybe it's horizontal railings that pick up, just like this, like you start to look and squint at the bridge railings, which is higher than what's necessary for ADA compliancy, I would assume, because of the height difference there.
Yep.
Is to see if you can take those horizontal members and bring them onto the concrete. I know they cannot be connected because they're separate from one another. Same coloration too. I think that would help. Just somehow color and the design elements to look familiar with one another. I think there's a will, there's a way. I think just got to spend a little time with design. So getting something off the shelf for the galvanized railings. I think it's going to cost some more money to match something. It won't be out of fiberglass. I understand that for the concrete, but it'll be made out of metal that'd be of the same coloration of the fiberglass bridge. I think that goes a long ways.
Yeah, typically we follow VDOT criteria for the
Well,
handrails.
I understand.
We either use galvanized or black.
I gotcha. But this is a historical district and this is not a VDOT roadway. I think you can bend the rules a little bit here to make it look
we do follow the PFM on this also, which do references VDOT criteria.
All right. Well, we're asking you to bend the rules. That's not your style, but we got to bend those rules.
Yeah.
Joe, can you turn those railings into a green screen?
I don't think so.
I think Joe Mr. Plumpy captured it accurately though. It's the horizontal versus vertical that really, at least for me, you've got these two different elements going off. If you had a horizontal all the way through, I think it would be much more accepting to it. And yeah, the color is not great either, but it's just it just feels like someone asked you to add the other part onto the nice bridge. That's the big thing that bothers me on that.
Yeah, one of the other things about the horizontal is, especially on the ramp, is we want to try to keep the kids from climbing on it.
Okay. Now, the one thing you could do too, yeah, that's a good point. Like to climb on the bridge and throw themselves off into the water, but
Well, the bridge is set up a little differently where that doesn't.
I got you. Yeah, so the toe grips. The other thing that you could explore, and I'm not going to tell you how to design it, but you could also do like this is in nature here. Why don't you could do stone wing walls that come off from the bridge, meaning that the bridge is fiberglass, and you make it out of stone. Let's just say natural stone that's masonry, mortar set and so forth, with the grab rail attached to it. That would be the same color as the bridge. So it's a solid wing wall that comes off of it versus a vertical handrail, vertical picket. More money you can do. I'm sure there's a VDOT standard for that for a stone wall, so that it's more kind of a little bit more interesting, and that maybe as another option, as opposed to if you have concerns about getting a different railing that's horizontal. Again, I think there's ways to do it, but I think the takeaway is, I mean, the bridge is an off-the-shelf item that's dictating what it's going to be, unless the bridge manufacturer can custom do something, which I'm sure they're not going to, for cost reasons and for availability and for timeliness. So I would just say make the off-site elements railing or stone wall embankment of some sort to. It's either going to be drastically different in an aesthetic manner, meaning the stone wall, or make it as compatible horizontally with a bridge horizontal railing.
All right, I want to give Mr. Burns, a chance to comment too. He's had his hand politely up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A number of comments. I Googled GRF prefab bridges, and the photograph that you included with your presentation appears to be a Bedford ready span. Is that correct?
It's fiberglass bridge that the county has a contract with that we use throughout the county. ET Tectonics.
Okay. Well, whatever. It looks identical to the Bedford ready span. It says that the rail height is 54 inches, which is what we see when when it comes on to grade. Whatever the material is for the land railing, could it be possible to be at the same height as the bridge and carry the wood top rail across to at least kind of tie them together visually with a horizontal? That's something that I think would give some consistency as you step off. Also, please, not white concrete. Can the concrete be tinted in some way so that it blends into the landscape and doesn't look like a bright chunk just suddenly drop there off the back end of the truck? That I think would also help. And then with regard to the new span, which is broader than the current span, you mentioned that you wanted to get a clearer flow for debris and reduce the risk of damage and stuff, yet you're leaving in and remaining in place and abandoning in place the existing two concrete supports, which seems to me would be an impediment to free flow of the stream.
Yeah, no, we can't get the bridge out of the floodplain. It's impossible to build a bridge out of the floodplain. And as you know, that area of
I understand that.
Spring floods.
Can you get the old abutments out?
We didn't want to disturb it because that's a different permitting process that we didn't want to go through.
Can you just cut them down to grade so they don't stick up? So you don't take them out of the ground, so you don't do any land disturbance. You just cut them down.
I don't know how they're built. I'm a little concerned about disturbing them.
But just cut them down. You're not going to pull up the footing. You're just going to take a.
Just get we'll look at it, but to be honest, I don't think that's feasible. I don't know what it's sitting on.
Okay.
And then your section drawing, it showed that the 2-year was just about a foot, maybe a little bit more than a foot from your deck. And so since you build this as a very lightweight structure, is this going to float off and get knocked downstream with a flood event?
It's possible, yes. We do have it designed. We're going to beef it up a little bit to mitigate that. We got the helical piles on the concrete, then we had the anchor bolts attached to it. But being in the floodplain, no engineer is going to guarantee that it's going to survive beyond a 2-year storm. If it happens, we'll go out there and bring it back. I can't. I would love to get out of the floodplain, but I just can't build it up that high.
No, I understand that, and I wouldn't advocate that. I'm just trying to find a way of trying to get more water to pass freely underneath it. to reduce the potential for scour or wash.
And there's also the debris issue. As a matter of fact, the existing bridge, we clean the debris from on a regular basis.
Yes, yes, I understand that. Yeah, I don't live far from it. I know exactly what you're talking about there.
What I was going to tack on what John was saying. John, I respect your opinion about it's a 54-inch high railing on the bridge itself and carry that height onto the other rail. My feeling is maybe start it that way, then taper it down to the appropriate height so it isn't so imposing on the concrete structure. So it just slopes down to the 42-inch high rail requirement. So just a thought.
Yeah, that would work. The whole idea is I wanted to get some continuous line. It didn't have to be all at the same elevation.
Exactly.
Just a continuous flow of a railing.
Yeah.
Even if the height varies some.
Yeah.
All right. Any other member comments or observations on this one? I think we've given you a lot of feedback on this. I think the end all be all is some consistency between materials in some of these places is something we really want to see. But there are a lot of great questions. I think obviously coming back, so same observation the prior workshop, the more you can provide context on how you considered our comments and recommendations and how you could or could not address them, that's really the most helpful information possible. And then obviously, just briefly summarizing, I think that's where we had that connection point between those two, the bridge itself and the other set of railings is really where there's a lot of, hey, can we make this more consistent in some way? Knowing you're under a lot of restrictions.
Yep, I appreciate the board's comments. And again, we got to follow certain criteria, ADA compliance and that sort of stuff. So the ideas may not be feasible.
True. Well, and that's, obviously, but you also got to come to us for an approval for a building permit. So that's
correct.
So we may not be ADA, but we are another A board or an A.
No, yeah. Again, I from an engineering point of view, I got to look at it from that way too. But we will look at your comments and go from there.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Bigoletti. I really appreciate you sticking with us to this hour. And thanks for the presentation.
Not a problem. Thank you.
All right. That concludes our last workshop session item. We have no presentations, so that takes us on to board and staff items. All right, Denise, you ready to walk through these? You and I did a draft run of them just last week, so I think we got them down to a pretty nice runtime. Review and action on approval of the previous month's minutes for May 2022. Denise, did you receive any comments on those minutes?
I did not.
Do we have any members that have any comments on those minutes that were provided to us? I'm not seeing anybody indicating they got comments, so I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes and pay the recording secretary.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Burns.
I move that the ARB approve the May 12, 2022 meeting minutes and pay the clerk, Ryan Johnson.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Oh, seconded by Mr. Plumpy and Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, that takes us on to Treasurer's Report. Is it as written, Denise? Our current amount is $17,148.17.
That's correct. There, Ryan Johnson, the clerk, was paid twice in the month of May because he was not paid in April. So we just got two payrolls that hit in this month.
Not a bank error in his favor like Monopoly, but actually a correct payment. Okay, good. All right, any comments on the coffers? Seeing no comments on our coffers, takes us on to administrative. Denise, are there any administrative items?
There are staff updates, but we can do those in the next point.
Okay, discussion and updated reports. The Lorton Workhouse Master Plan.
And that would be for Mr. Plumpy and Ms. Wong, because I was not able to attend the charrette that I think both of them attended. So.
Yes, we did. Yes, we were both there. We were both sitting beside each other. In fact, it was very fruitful. Got to the point where the and please, Ms. Wong, please chime in. Is my observation is the consultants, the architect and the landscape architect, land planner, they were there. It was led by the architect, VBBM. I think they were out of Charlottesville. If I butchered the acronym, I apologize. And Mr. Reiser, he was one of the original donators for the Lorton Arts Foundation when it was Lorton Arts Foundation, and he's been a big donor there. He's on the board too as well. He basically said, let's speed this up. So we kind of ran through kind of skipped some of the steps of the charrette, because basically they're just frustrated because it's the same thing. They're trying, hey, why are we doing this all over again? Let's just cut to the chase and see what we can do. So a lot of it was programmatic type things that we talked about. And we did a charrette from the standpoint of drawing plans that indicated where things would go and so forth, perhaps new buildings for residential housing. The big thing there is they need money to make this thing happen from either the county or from private sources. And the bottom line is food and beverage is really key there. I live 8 miles from here. I'm all for that too as well. A lot of residences are saying food and beverage because there's nothing to bring you there. Art is great, but it needs to go beyond that. Interesting enough too is the buildings just have hanging wires from when everything stopped about 10 to 12 years ago when they ran out of money. The Lorton Arts Foundation ran out of money. So there's a little time capsule there in some of these buildings that are just, some improvements are done and boom, they stopped. So because they ran out of money. And the other thing so besides doing some quick little sketches on master plans, which the architect will consolidate into kind of initial drafts of what could happen, there was things as talked about as residential housing next door to the existing buildings that are far enough away that they would not compete. There's a lot of surface parking right now out there that is not really used much because of the activities out there. Is could they put buildings on that, have podium type structures that are maybe 2 to 3 stories tall with parking underneath the buildings, not going below grade, but just utilizing the space a little more economically minded. There's the ball field there, which I'm a big advocate of trying to keep. I voiced my opinion in that workshop, because it's at Liberty, we kind of libertized it, so to speak. They just kept the dugout and kind of everything else went away. There is functionality to that ballpark, and I was a big proponent of doing programmatic elements, as in order to make money they need venues. They have a barn that they want to turn into a music barn, but that's going to cost a couple $2-3 million to convert into a music barn. They don't have that money. They have this middle area which has the tent periodically. They put in the brickwork that we approved, if you remember that or not. It was, in my opinion, very shoddily done. Weeds are going through the bricks and it looks like hell. Excuse my expression. And it needs to be, unfortunately, the county is funded. They use prisoners from the county jails, my understanding, to maintain this facility, as opposed to having a professional grounds crew do it. And it shows, and that's kind of a sad situation there. So the curb appeal is a little rough if you're trying to encourage people to come here. The whole thing is to try and encourage people to come here. There was talk about putting townhouses in the Ball Diamond area for residential type things. One of the board members said that. And I think that'd be a detriment to the whole beauty of what this whole area is, besides the Ball Diamond, having these townhouses. We already do that to Liberty, but I think this is a little bit more interesting because it's a artist colony that wants to be there, or some kind of more public type thing versus a commercial district. We know that there's going to have to be some private development somehow integrated into this to make it work financially, I think. So therefore, if it's some artistic way to put, multifamily housing stick built on top of podium or something like that, that does not destroy the integrity of the quad itself. The other big concerns is, the quad is a very desolate area right now. There's no trees, no vegetation. And remember, we went through that when we were City 9 firm, when we went to the board a long time ago for the Lorton Arts Foundation. We were shunned away from putting trees in there by the VDHR people. So I don't know if they would have a different heart of what could happen. I'm very interested to see how VDHR will respond to the new master plan. So I think it's going to be a more aggressive development around it to support it, because right now, and Denise, I know you work for the county, and Laura and a few others on the call, but I think it'll die on the vine if there's no infusion of private development into this thing. You know, I just don't, because the county doesn't have the funds to make it work right now, and they're very hesitant to give money to it. If it is, you got to get in line. The one guy who was there for the financing of the county's monies was there, says, hey, if there's a private developer, we'll put you ahead of the front of the line. But if you're waiting for the county to give money, you're way behind. So it's just things will deteriorate. And a lot of people have thoughts, you know, about that, the old boiler plant, you know, for a special element. And it's falling apart now. Some of the cool metal stacks are falling down, so to speak. So it needs to be done, you know, I'm going to say within the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years, or you're going to see these buildings deteriorate to beyond usability. Some of the ones that are not in the forefront, and some of those, like the music barn, like the barn itself, structurally it's falling apart. They got to structurally enhance it, you know. So there's a lot of things that, it's unfortunately, time has took its toll on some things. So, and I know that they started to have the fencing around the 2 structures that we approved, the restaurant pads in front. You know, that little plaza of the 2 restaurant pads, that is under construction now. I really question their viability and strong ability. That's food and beverage, but I think it needs to be more of a grander scale and programming, so to speak, to the point that I solicited myself to become a board member of the Lorton Workhouse. From a standpoint is my name has been thrown in the hat. I made the first approval. So the board votes on me to allow me the board votes if I can be one of the 30 board members on the Lorton Workhouse. That should come up in early July. So my assumption is that eventually I may have to recuse myself from some of this. But my goal is to be a very vocal person because it's close to my heart, close to my house. And I think it's a detriment that we're just letting it go down in a point that's not happy. So I'm going to do what I can to program it. I've already have some ideas on what committees I'd like to be on, a development committee and a program committee, because something needs to happen there. I know they all taught them, they all they all shout out that we had Baryshnikov there. Great. That was, you know, 20 years ago, however it's been, that was their first or second year that they were open up. But other than that, they had things sputter here and there, but you know, it needs some retooling. I think they realize that. So I think it's a restart, refresh, and I'm pretty excited about it. I hope that the master plan is in the right direction, and I hope the VDHR people will help support what the master plan maybe needs to be for this place to survive. I think if they stick to their guns and keep everything as it is, it won't get off it will not get off the ground and only deteriorate further. Sorry for a long-winded thing. So I'm very excited about it, as you can tell. I'm passionate about it. So that's it.
Thanks, Joe. Ms. Swan, did you have any other observations to add? Or
just a little bit. That was a 4-hour, very solid charade, and the idea was there was a lot of idea, and almost every piece of the land in that campus, people have some idea of what to do. So it's a lot of idea. Now the next step is to see how the architects company can consolidate every idea and come up with a master plan that we can keep going on the discussion. The other observation is after joining the charade, I realized why they invite us to join them, because every once in a while the people will turn around and ask, if we do this, will ARB approve it? So that's the purpose of having us there.
One thing I did say, well, what's interesting is when they asked that question, I did respond a couple of times. Look, if it's good enough architecture, if it makes sense, I think the ARB would consider it. You know, but I think that's the key thing, is because something else needs to happen there besides just worry about what's interior of those buildings. I think there's going to have to be some new buildings constructed that would have to complement in a modern way what's there. It's kind of, because it's the same architectural group that's done the Mount Vernon School redevelopment that's on it. And I think they did an excellent job there with the Mount Vernon School. So I think, it's there. So we'll see.
All right. Thank you, Joe and Samantha. Any comments or questions from any board members on this one? John.
Back when this whole thing got started, there was a $37 million bond issue to get the Lorton Arts Foundation all off the ground. And to my mind, I don't think I have seen $37 million worth of investment in it. And I was just wondering, where'd the money go? Do you have any sense of that?
That's a real good question. And frankly, unless they got it and putting the new roofs on and everything, but John, I'm with you. I have no idea where that money is. Either that or it got pulled away. Janice, do you have any idea? Or
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
yeah,
No, I was gonna say Janice, so I feel like you got to answer that one.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad we have both of you on the case on this one, and I'm glad they're looking to you all to at least get that reaction, because that was probably the biggest thing we Denise advocated for having us there, is so they know that they need to come to us, but that we're not, just going to sit through the office of no. And maybe I think you're bringing new perspectives to them about other issues that are, going to be bigger things to capture, because it could be the prettiest architecture in the world. If it isn't a viable idea, then, people aren't going to come to it. All right. With that item, let's go on the Homes Run Acres HOD.
Sure. And Chris, I don't know how quickly you want me to run through these because it is 9:30. So
Sure, let's just hit it as quick as you can.
Yeah, I could just hit them, and then if anybody has any questions, we can circle back. So Homes Run Acres HOD, the next and last work group meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday at June 15th. If you're interested in attending, you can just go to the Google Homes Run Acres HOD and you'll find us and you can attend. I think the meeting starts at 6:30. There's a community-wide information meeting planned for late July, and the PC and board hearings have not yet been scheduled. There were no correspondence as far as I'm aware. As far as old business, I want to congratulate the ARB. The board approved your bylaws on May 10th. So now your new bylaws are in place and adopted and approved. And that's what we're working under now with the new.
Only and biggest key thing to keep in mind there is one that we have to let the Board of Supervisors know about 106, which we are already very careful to do. And the other thing is the attendance policy. So obviously I know we're getting in the summer and I know a lot of things come up. Just if you cannot make a meeting, just make sure when you get that email out asking, you copy me on the response back indicating that you're going to not be able to make it so I can mark you as excused. Otherwise, I've just been telling Denise to mark everyone who isn't here as unexcused unless they've had an indication. And for me, I go to Jason and let him know, because tonight I got a little one upstairs with a fever, but thankfully didn't have to take her to urgent care. Last minute, I was like, I got to go. You're going to have to run this cavalcade. But just those are the only two things to keep in mind. It's just, loop me in, and I'm pretty willing to just say, yes, you're approved for that.
Hey, Chris, this is Joe. Last year we took August off. That's in our bylaws that August is our month of not having a hearings?
We didn't adopt it in the bylaws, but it is definitely something we could consider doing in August. And I think the big question is, Denise, if that's something we can do, that's fine. It just might make September a bit tougher for us.
I wouldn't recommend it given the caseload that you all have had. We already have 2 workshops that I put off from from June on the July agenda. So there's already, applications, they're workshops, but they're waiting. So it's just a consideration. And we did have a 5-hour meeting in April. And we, excuse me, as the chair has pointed out, you need to do the approvals. So September could be really a robust agenda if you don't have a meeting in August.
Perhaps it's something we consider next year then, or sometime. I mean, it would be, I'm not trying to get out of anything, but I think it's nice to have a break. I think it worked out well, but something to consider.
Understood.
So keeping in mind that if Homes on Acres is passed, you'll be adding another 300 plus homes again. Yeah. So it's just just keep it in mind.
Right, and they don't have a design design review. So anyway,
That could be a good or bad thing. Anyways, I just sorry, Denise, you were going to speed through these, and we're just picking you apart.
Yeah, well, one thing I just want to say, and I'm sorry to belabor the point, but I think, if we know that we're a month out, excuse me, if we have a month off during the course of the year, like other jurisdictions do, and for some boards and so forth, at least we can plan for it. And I'm sorry that people just have to wait another month. I'm sorry. It's just, instead of being pushed around, we can maybe have a little bit.
Well, I think, Joe,
stronger voice.
you brought it up enough that I think part of the problem is it's Denise is beset by what was supposed to be, I think, sold as a wonderful thing, this plus system, but instead, based on what I'm hearing, is now creating more challenges because now folks submit things into plus, and Denise gets them, and literally she has like 24 hours to pretty much turn them around to us to meet our requirements to get them before us, so we have enough time to look at them. So the efficiencies that the county has created have, if anything, eliminated the kind of, hey, come talk to us, before you submit a package to the ARB to make sure you got everything. Hence, one of the packages we've never seen before today that came through for an application just came straight through the county's plus submission system. There was no, workshop, or there was no, so I agree. But one thing I pushed Denise on was finding out how much authority she has through her superiors to tell folks no. If something comes through that is inadequate, just flat out, this is not acceptable. It shouldn't even be an action item. Because I made the point of saying we can vote and deny it when it comes up, but I don't get, or we can vote on the agenda and strike something and say, we want to strike this from our agenda. We can definitely do that, but I don't get to decide, what submissions come in. The county has to then draw a curtain or a cutoff on those applications and tell folks, and then they've got to indicate to them like something like if we did have an August recess, they got to go, look, that's going to be deferred to the September meeting, and you're going to have to wait. That's why we did practice the rule at the workshops, because Denise came to me and said we got 5 actions, and they had 2 additional workshops on top of that. I go, no, we're cutting it to 2. That's it. Tell the other folks come next month. We can't handle it.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. I think it's going to be conscious of our time and their time too as well. Thank you.
Right.
And I saw Laura come on camera. So Laura, I feel like you had something you wanted to say.
No, I just heard talk with supervisors, and so I came if you need me. If you don't need me, I'm fine.
Sorry. Well, I will say that the one variance, they wanted approval on the architecture, which I did not think that they had a complete application. So I went back to them and said, your application's incomplete. And the one workshop, I sent her the checklist because when I saw her application, there were no architectural drawings, and I said, well, this is not complete. So I was able to do that, but it has to be quickly, and I don't have time to do any kind of QC. And Laura and I were just chatting about it, and how we can. I need time. I need time built into the process in order to do the quality control. That is not happening right now, admittedly.
We used to have, and to Denise's point, we used to have a little bit of QC where they had to at least contact us and say, what do I need to do? And then we were able to at least have a conversation with them, where now it's, Denise sends the plus link and they just go ahead and upload it and say, I'm done, because none of the documents are required because they're not required by the zoning ordinance. So we say as necessary, and then they just kind of upload whatever they want. And then we have to turn around and send it to you all. So we either need to move the submission date back, which we had already kind of talked about with staff reports, or move your review time back. But we'll discuss that more internally and give you some options later.
And just to clarify, I don't send the plus link. It's on the web page. So people just go to the Architectural Review Board's webpage and submit an application. And I may have never had a conversation with them. I don't know where, I've never had a conversation with them. So that's the way, it's efficient. It is efficient, but I don't have enough review time to tell. They come in on Thursday night and then I have to get them back out the door. So.
Well, then you can just, I mean, if they come in too much, I mean, you're only human. You could, I'm sorry, that's going to get deferred without even looking at it until the following month. So don't put yourself behind the 8 ball, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
So
and
we'll
that's
work
what
it.
I asked Denise was she needs to work with Laura and those up there. If that's the answer, then yes. I told her we can't tell you we're not your boss, but we can't. But if you can't handle, if it's too much, Denise, then yeah, then it gets pushed back. I mean, that was about as strong a position I could get with the variance was this isn't architectural drawings. It can be a variance, but don't make it be something on the agenda that I know is not going to make it.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so I went to
with
Laura
this new
to set things up.
technology that you guys have gotten, did they give you large computer monitors so you can see all this digital data?
We are.
I do. Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
We are we as staff are getting larger computer monitors.
That's the least they can do.
Thank you for the discussion. We are aware and we're talking about it and what to do. We weren't talking about an August recess though, so that's a new one to throw into the mix.
Well, we only tried it for the first time last year, so you know we dipped our toes into it. I can't remember why, but so maybe it is something we need to look more thoroughly into having that's a permanent item.
I think there was a staffing issue last year. There's still a staffing issue, the same staffing issue. So,
well, maybe you need to talk with Laura about maybe we need to give you a little more time. The man shows coming in. We need to do a September run-a-thon and just run through them. We actually got every one of the action items down to less than 24 minutes, I would say. And some of those were ones that had some snarly kind of issues, I will point out. And we still managed them pretty consistently with comments and questions. So the only thing I noticed is I can't see you all when the screen is showing plans. I can only see some of you. So if I ignored you, that was not intentional. I could only see some cameras. So it's just a happy coincidence in that situation.
Chris, if you turn on the participant list, you can scroll up and down and you can see whether or not somebody's raised their hand.
Yes, well, John, and you definitely do that. You always do, but not everybody does.
Yeah.
anyways, so Denise, let's let you keep going so we can wrap up.
Sure, right. So I just wanted to mention that the consultant is actually taking a look at the masonry repairs that are needed at the courthouse. I sent out a staff report ahead of time. So if there are more questions about anything in the staff report, please let me know. But there's more information, excuse me, in my staff report about that. The Lake Ann supplemental report, just an update. I contacted WJE, and they are completed with the writing portion. It's under review, internal review now. We have not seen it yet, but I expect it imminently for our review. So that's coming. The modern architectural survey, which the architectural review supported, we got full funding for. So that will be launched this fall. Yay. And that's a relief. Thank you so much for all of your help and your support and your monetary support. So that'll be a big study for us. The African American Context Study and Architectural Survey, they are wrapping their work up, and there's going to be a public meeting held at the end of July. We're planning for that now. So you'll receive information about that when that happens. And that you also supported that as well. So thank you again. And then I'm actually going to defer to Ms. Orr now because she had contacted me about the it says the Excellent in Design Awards. I think it's called the
James M. Scott.
There, James M. Scott Exceptional Design Awards.
Well, and I don't, Kate, you don't have to take the lead on this one, but Kate indicated to Denise that she obviously these are coming back up again, and she has obviously she did them last year for us graciously, but we wanted to bring it up to the whole group as if someone had an interest in taking up that mantle and taking part and participating in our role in the design awards. And Kay, I don't know if you want to talk about it or about the previous experience and whatnot.
So I've done it for 3 years, and what you're the chairman, and it's pretty well laid out what you need to do, and you spend a day, or not a whole day, discussing projects that have been submitted. We don't go out and look for projects; they have to be submitted to us. And we've developed a jury. I don't do, it's given to you, and so you're conducting the jury and then writing up their comments, and that's the day. If you enjoy conversation with usually it's the president of the AIA and all these different very intelligent people talking about architecture in Fairfax County, and for that it's very fun. So
But obviously, Kay has, as she pointed out, served us graciously for 3 years. Sorry, time is blurred for me once I add additional dependents into my household, I feel like. But so it's not requiring an answer now tonight, but the question was put forward. If someone else would like to take up the mantle of being a chairman for this year, you need to get back to Denise and let us know. Denise, how soon do we need to know that answer by?
Again, I would actually defer to Kay because I'm not sure. I don't know when that Marcia needs an answer. Do you have any idea?
I don't. It seems like July. The sooner the better. And Marcia she is a wealth of information. She's the one that does it, and anybody that was interested could talk to her about their concerns and what their responsibilities would be. She would love to talk to anyone. But a lot of the people that have been on the ARB for a while have served. I think probably everybody has served. Joe, do you want to say something, Joe?
I was just going to say I served on there for I think 2 or 3 years, and I enjoyed it. I'm a landscape architect, so I put a different spin on things. But I was very observant, and Kay's right. It's a great experience. I welcome anyone else to do it, for sure.
All right. Well, then I won't force that right now, or we could just point to the folks who aren't here and say that they have to do it. But obviously, reach out to Denise and Kay and indicate that very soon if you have an interest. Obviously, we need to get somebody, and obviously, Kay, Denise, if you don't hear anything from anybody, let me know. We'll see what we can do.
Well, I have a question. Because it is all new architecture, and we are about preservation, I guess I just kind of wondered how we started chairing this thing. Yeah, I'm just curious.
Oh, that
John,
okay.
do you know?
I was gonna say John, Elise, Michelle.
Yeah.
I've been doing it forever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think from the time I've got on the History Commission, because I did a number of them through the 90s.
Yeah.
John has admirably done an awful lot as well.
Right.
Yeah, and for as long as I can remember, that was the case. My guess is that started back when Bruce Kravisky was the ARB administrator, which was even before Linda Blank's time.
No, it was in the Liz David period.
Oh, really? I'll go all the way back to Liz David. My guess is they just asked around and somebody said, yeah, I'll do it. But for the longest time, it was the chair of the ARB who became the chair of the Exceptional Design Awards. So, so I ended up doing it like 4 years in a row or something like that, or on multiple occasions because of that.
Ah, okay. All right. Do I use the infant card? Well,
I'm just that's not.
I will point out I have not done it.
Yeah.
My penmanship is not that great, so they might hate me for that.
Richard Pierce made me do it 1 year, and if you're a good administrator, you can do it. But I really think a design professional is a better choice. But a lot of it is just listening and getting them to give you the comments so you could just compile them. And it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's mostly listening and establishing whatever consensus that the committee comes up with, or excuse me, the jury comes up with. Sometimes I don't agree. I argue against something, but then in the end, when you're the chair, you have to present the consensus of the jury, even if you violently disagree with it. It's like,
Oh boy. I will say I've advocated numerous times when there are projects where historic structures are reincorporated, and I've said it during these meetings, why not submit it for an exceptional design award? Or eventually Mount Vernon High School, if they do it right, that could be one. But
yeah.
All right. Well, Kay, we don't have to burden you with it again. We will find someone. If I really do have to pick up that mantle, I will. But I obviously, if you
I was not pushing it on you. You just asked for what the history was. I just told you.
Yeah. All right. So Michelle had a comment, Denise, about where are we with the guidelines? And I didn't see that in your staff report, and I'm going to piggyback on this and saying that staff report was excellent, though, and I like that, and that made it really easy for me to know where all these items were. But where are we with the guidelines?
Sure, and I've not been reporting on the design guidelines because I have asked Laura if we can put them on hold until we get my replacement for the History Commission, because I have been doing both boards since October, and we just and I appreciate the fact that you all need the updated design guidelines. I really do, and I see that as a need. But I've asked Laura if we could just wait until that new person comes on board, and then I will immediately just pivot and we'll get started on taking those out. I think they're all done. Is that right, Laura? And we're just at the point where we need to take them out to the community. So I see Laura's head shaking.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. We kind of are tentatively planning when that happens. We have a new hire hoping will start August 1st. We'll take over the History Commission position. So hopefully we can start working on our backlog of projects that have kind of just stalled because we don't have the capability to do it. But yes, Denise is right that our next step is to bring it to community meetings, and we have to set those up and do a mailing and advertising and things like that. So it would take a little bit to get it off the ground, but yes, they're ready to go as soon as we get that. As soon as we get the person here to free Denise's time up a little bit. So.
Okay. Well, and you answered my question about where's that staffing position then. So thank you for that update. Any other comments or questions by members?
Yeah, there's one comment is that Father's Day weekend, Sully Plantation Car Show. That's all I'm going to say.
If you weren't going to say it, Joe, I was going to mention it.
Thank you so much, man.
Take my kiddo there.
And I may show the Studebaker. Depends if I can make it there or not. So.
All right. If there are no other comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. It's always in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned.
Have a good month, you guys.
Good evening.
Peace. Peace.
Night.